Cheers, queers! What's on the big gay agenda today, Theora?
Today, we're going to be doing a book club from Monmaw, again, our favorite author. Today, we will be discussing Volume 1 of Somewhere, Somehow. Woo!
Woo!
Yes.
I have a question. Does
Yes.
Monmaw only do stuff in 2 parts?
Apparently. She's not a trilogy girl. She's a duology girl. I think her books start off as, at least this one was a web book. Like, it got web releases first. It's not uncommon. But anyway, yeah, so we'll be doing volume 1. So if you didn't know, Somewhere Somehow is going to be a new girl love series by Idol Factory. It's at the time of this recording, they are filming it. And so soon we're going to have this as a series, which is very, very exciting. And the series will cover volume 1 and 2. This book club will cover all of volume 1. And then next month we'll come back and do volume 2 because it just recently got released in English. And so we haven't read it yet. So with that, we will be spoiling literally everything about this book. So if you want to watch the series and you don't want to be spoiled, don't listen to this podcast. Like, come back after the series, but like, we're going to spoil everything in the novel for volume 1, just so you're aware.
Yes, which means like it could be the show, it could not be the show. We don't know. With Idol Factory, it's probably the show, but we don't know. So
you never know. They might pull a GMMTV and be like, novel who? I doubt it. Yeah, Idol Factory's pretty close to the adaptation. So yeah, we'll probably be spoiling the series inadvertently. But again, we don't know. They're filming. If you want more Somewhere Somehow content that's not this, in addition, we filmed our reaction to the pilot. So that's available on YouTube in a highlight format and on our Patreon for the entire thing. That pilot was hilarious. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. Like, what are you waiting for? Go watch it.
It might be my favorite pilot ever.
Literally. No, like, hands down. It's the best pilot. Also, if you're into book clubs for the Thai Girl Love novels, we have also done volume 1 and 2 of The Loyal Pin, also Monmaw. And in the future, we'll be doing Cranium, which would be the new Idol Factory. I guess we just do Idol Factory book clubs also, weirdly enough. So we'll be doing Cranium after we finish Somewhere Somehow, so there's that to look forward to also.
It'll be our first Thai non-Monmaw book club.
It'll be our first non-Monmaw.
So far, it's just a Monmaw book club.
Monmaw and Idol Factory. Anyway, so that's that. So, shall we get into the novel? Or is there any other announcements you'd like to give real quick?
No other announcements right now.
All right, cool. So, let's introduce the book. So, the book is, Somewhere Somehow. Monmaw is the author. And we read the English translation because that's our language. And this was translated into English by Bon Pitch. So thank you, translator. You did an awesome job. This book was excellent as an English speaker. The translation was incredible. And this book is so funny. It's so funny. So the way it was translated too was great. So
very
good.
Easy to read, everything. Yeah.
It was amazing.
Formatted great too.
Yeah, it was really good. Very well done. So let me give, in my words, a quick synopsis of what this book is about. So, Somewhere Somehow Volume 1. This hilarious and heartbreaking tale of the stoic yet secretly dorky Kiran, Kie for short, who makes all the boys and girls swoon. But Kie only gives the time of day to her codependent best friend, Porty, aka Pock, and her petite and possessive girlfriend, Pheem. It's a story where the, quote, must-have drama scenes, quote, end quote, balance beautifully with whimsical wittiness.
I love that you included the must-have drama scenes part.
That comes from the pilot, if you know what we're talking about. Chef's kiss to whoever came up with that. So
seriously.
Yeah. So this is going to be like more rom-com. It's more of like a rom-com style book where there is a lot of humor in it, but it's like there's drama baked into it too. It's not just like a straight up comedy with no drama. Like there's drama in it, but like there's a lot of humor, which made me really love the story and the pilot.
And the characters.
Oh my God, the characters are amazing. But before we get into them, just a quick disclaimer to anybody who's new here, just so you're aware, all hosts and attendants of the Big Gay Energy podcast are not fluent in the Thai language. We are not members of this culture, nor are we residents of the part of the world where this TV show or this novel takes place. Therefore, we are limited in our perspective on this piece of media and cannot analyze it without our Western American life experiences and biases. We did our best to research Thai culture to put this novel into context, but we are not experts on the topic and wanted to be transparent about that before going any further. So we will mess things up. We try not to, but if we do, please correct us in the comments. Let us know so we can all learn and grow together. We appreciate those who do point things out and who have the perspective that we do not. All right, so I mentioned previously this story is going to be adapted into a series by Idol Factory. They are filming now. I think we started late spring 2025, so maybe we'll get a release in the summer, winter. Hopefully by the end of 2025 we'll get this series. No announcement.
I saw someone guess July, but yeah, who knows? We get told a week before.
Yeah, it's literally still filming at this time, so not entirely sure, but hopefully by the end of 2025 we will get the series. So, very exciting. So let's get into the characters. So the main characters are, I mentioned Kie or Kiran. Kiran's like the main point of view character. And in the series, this is going to be played by, I think it's pronounced Faye and not Phi because her name is Fay. If that's wrong, tell me. I can never...
If this is spelled Phi, I don't understand.
I think it's Faye, but I really don't know. Because I think their ship name's Faye and May, but... if I'm wrong, please let me know. Okay, so Kie. So Kie is described by Monmaw in the novel. This is my favorite description of Kiran. So in the really beginning, she describes Kiran. Kiran appeared both haughty and dangerously charming. So she's like basically this person who has this exterior of being this really stoic, like untouchable person, but then you're in her head all the time and you realize she's nothing like the way she appears. She's just really dorky. And I laughed so much reading her thoughts. Like I literally laughed out loud every chapter reading this book. Where it got to the point where I was like 5 chapters in, and I was like, Caitlin, we have to talk about this book because it's so funny. I just kept laughing. It was mostly because of being in Kiran's head. She might be my favorite point of view character in a novel ever. Just being in her head was very entertaining.
Being in her head made it so you forgot that this was the description of her until you get to, I believe it's Sai's point of view chapter that reminds you that she has like this cold exterior. And I'm like, oh yeah, but we've been spending so much time in her head and know how ridiculous her inner thoughts are that
she's hilarious.
It doesn't match up to what you see on the outside.
It's absolutely hilarious. So like one of my favorite inner monologues from Kie. So there's a scene towards the beginning where she's describing the difference between herself and Pheem is like the love interest. And she says Pheeminus was in her Little Miss group. So this is like she's explaining their social circles. So this is how she explains how they're different. She's like, Pheem was in her Little Misses group. They were cute, smart, wore immaculate uniforms with all the ribbons. And I was in a nerd group, going about my day in my PE uniform. We didn't hang out with anyone else. We just hung ourselves. We just hung out. Anyway, walking home with Pock wasn't so bad. The way she just like says stuff in her own brain and is like, that's not what I meant. I'm like, girl, you could just edit yourself. It's just so funny.
I find this so relatable because I definitely have had inner conversations with my own brain and done stuff like this.
So funny.
Because like she's overthinking her own thoughts and realizing that there's a second meaning to her thoughts.
I know.
And it's like, wait, no, that's not what I meant. Don't think that's what I meant. It's your own brain, girl.
Right. She's arguing with herself, which is so funny.
Trying to play it off right afterwards by saying, like, anyway, walking home was
right to herself. She's like, anyway, whatever, brain. She's so funny. Like, it's just like stuff like that. The way Monmaw wrote her inner monologue, it was brilliant and just hilarious. I've never read an internal monologue character quite like Kie, and he just makes me laugh constantly. She's so funny. Just stuff like that. But Kie thinks about Kie's character. So Kie, like I mentioned, kind of comes off as like standoffish and like untouchable. So she's more introvert, like a natural introvert. She's really quiet around a lot of people. And so you forget that because she's comes alive. I relate to Kie a lot. She comes alive around people she's comfortable with, which is a limited amount of people. So it's Pock, her best friend, and then Pheem, the love interest. And like you're constantly around those characters, so you forget Kie is actually really quiet and like stoic and shit because she's a goofball around her friends, basically.
Yeah, I can see that. I feel like I'm most like Pock.
Pock is great. Before we get to Pock, let's talk about Pheem.
Yeah.
So Pheem is going to be played by May, and Pheem is so funny too, in a different way. So Pheem is this like tiny little girl who's like Kie described as all like proper and like all this kind of stuff appearing. So she's like comes off as really sweet, but then when you get to know her, she has like humongous anger management issues, and she's like a little ticking time bomb constantly. In this little
And
person.
that is very accurate.
She's kind of like a little chihuahua where she's like tiny and you would be like, oh, they'd be cute, but then they're just like full of aggression. And then like Kie would be more like, I don't even know what kind of dog that's like super stoic and like a pit bull. Some pit bulls who are like, they're like from afar, you're like, oh man, don't mess with that dog. But then it's like a huge softie when you get to know it. That's kind of like Kie and
I
Pheem.
think a pit bull, for some reason I was thinking of a Doberman, but I think a pit bull would be, because like the society's viewpoint on that too, like, oh, you do not mess with pit bulls, they're going to tear you apart. Then like literally they're the sweetest little things that literally just like flop on your lap.
And Pock is like a mutt. Like she's just a wild card. So
Pock is the dog on the street just like trying to go up to everybody,
literally,
and, like,
steal their
ask for food. Yeah.
No, that's Pock. So Pock's gonna be played by Lucknam, and thing to know about Pock is that Pock was orphaned at a really young age, so she grew up with her grandmother. So hopefully this means we're gonna get at least one grandmother in the show, because you gotta have at least one. Otherwise, what are we doing? Personality-wise, Pock is the reincarnation of Prick from the Loyal Pin. She's the loyalist friend to ever live, very food motivated, just like Prick, and would kill it on Dancing with the Stars.
I love this description. Yes, Pock is definitely a direct descendant from Prick.
Agreed.
But also, to your Dancing with the Stars comment, I could definitely see Pock going on Thailand's Got Talent because Kie bribed her with food to go on there as a joke. And then, I don't know if you've seen, like, America's Got Talent or any of those. There's, like, people who came with you backstage waiting, and, like, they show clips of them while the person's performing. So I could just see, like, Kie behind backstage, like holding up the dumplings for Pock, just motivating her to keep performing.
She would.
And I just started making myself laugh thinking about this scenario. Honestly, those two, you could put them in any situation and it's just hilarious.
They are the absolute best. And like luckily in the novel in the special chapters, we get the origin story of how they became friends. So, and it's just the best. So they became friends when they were 6 years old. So they're both in first grade. And what's interesting about their first meeting is that it's a Pock point of view, not Kie. So you get this from Pock's point of view, which honestly was brilliant, and it made it so much better because you get Pock's background, which you don't really get throughout the novel, because the focus is Kie and Pheem, really, like, and Pock obviously being like the wing woman. But we're first introduced to Pock in Kie's inner monologue in the very first chapter of the book, and this is all we know until you get to the special chapter. So, which is hilarious. So Kie is explaining Pock, and she's like, she, meaning Pock, was in Pocky Gang, which in fact had only 2 members. For her name was Pock, and my name was Kie. But like you're reading this, and I was just like, she's in Pocky Gang. There's only 2 people in that. It's me and her. So it's a 2-person gang. Like, I laughed so hard reading this. I was just like, Kiran. The way she says things where she's just like, this is really important. And then she's like, but it's ridiculous what I'm saying. Pocky Gang.
It really sets the whole tone for
It
the book
does.
with this.
It really
I think this
does.
is the first time I texted you, and like, because there's times throughout this book where I just texted Theora and no context would just write one sentence about the book and for Theora to guess where I am, and I'm like, Pocky. It's like they have to be named after the snack, right? That's all I could think about. But yes, I love this description of this gang.
It just makes it sound more important than it is. Pocky Gang, which had
And like
two people.
the word gang in there, like, because you think they're gonna be
funny.
this big bad, rule the school. No, they're just Pocky.
No, but it's really funny because she calls them, a gang. And then later, like the description I gave you earlier, where she's describing Pheem's friend group and her friend group, and she's like, we're the nerd group. So it's not even a gang, it's just a nerd group. So when you get to learn more about them, you're like, this is ridiculous and so funny.
The special chapter really helped, like, understand
did.
this whole thing, but you don't get it till very
The
end.
the very end. Okay, so
So
let's
it's just like, okay, yeah, go ahead.
So how did Pocky Gang happen? So they were, like I mentioned, they were 6 years old and in first grade when they first met. And it's Pock's point of view. So Pock gives a little background on what her life was like before she met Kie. And she was like this little chubby, like, kid with darker skin. And so she would get bullied by like the boys in her class. We'd call her all kinds of like derogatory names and stuff. She's 6 years old. So this was like absurd. And Pock's thoughts
Like,
at the time.
that's like, just remember, she's 6 years old.
She's 6.
Dealing with this shit. Like,
I know.
6. That's insane.
6.
It makes me sick, honestly.
I mean, kids are awful. So anyway, so Pock's thoughts about all of this at the time, she says to herself that, like, I was just a clueless little girl with no power to stand up to anyone. So that's what she was like before she meets Kie. And Pock's, again, was orphaned, so she lived with her grandmother. And her grandmother's like a tough old broad who gives Pock advice on how to handle the bullies. And her advice changes Pock's perspective forever. And she says to Pock, remember, dear, if you think you're pretty, then you are. But if you think you're not, then you'll never be pretty. So basically, like, confidence is key kind of thing. So then Pock takes its advice and then goes back to school, and she starts getting bullied again. But this time, this girl stands up for her. And it's the boys making fun of the way Pock looks. And the girl says to the boys, you guys are dark-skinned and fat yourselves. Why are you mocking others? And this girl was Kie. And so that's their first introduction to each other, which is great. But isn't it always like projection when it comes to bullies?
You gotta say your iconic line, Theora. Projection, Your Honor.
Huh?
Your iconic line is projection, Your Honor.
It is projection, Your Honor. Exactly. So then they like talk, and they're immediately huge dorks with each other because like they're trying to say their names and they like misheard their names, and like, oh my god, it was so funny the way they started bantering immediately with each other. Later on, Pock saves Kie. They're like walking home from school or something, and like Pock saves Kie from a wild dog by literally picking up Kie and running away, carrying Kie from the dog. Because Kie was like this little like willowy thing, and Pock was like a bigger, sturdier kid. So she like literally picks up Kie and runs away holding her. So later, so Kie is so touched by this that somebody saved her life, basically, that she invites Pock to her house as like a thank you.
I love that Pock's like, oh, it's no big deal. One time, I forget what the grandmother said, but she's like, I ran out of the house with a dragon jar, which I guess, come to think of it, I should have picked up grandmother and ran instead.
Yeah, she like saves the food instead of her grandmother or something. Like, yeah.
Which is so, I mean, I understand. Also, you're like 6.
She's 6, or it would have been younger.
Yeah, it would have been. Which is insane that she's able to lift that much. I mean, little kids are very strong. It's insane. But anyway, he invites Pock over for snacks. And as soon as Pock hears the word snacks, she starts drooling. And he like calls her out on it. But we learned from Pock's inner monologue that she's never had snacks before. and that she's only heard of snacks. I'm like, that's so sad. I didn't expect Pock's point of view to be so like sad. Like her backstory
It keeps getting
is
sadder.
heartbreaking. Yeah, it does. Um, and like if Pock hadn't had snacks before, it makes me think that like food was scarce because like she's like we have meals, but we don't like eat between. And I'm like, okay, so maybe there. I don't know if like the grandmother just didn't do
They were
snacks
I think they were
or
just poor is what she's trying to
yeah.
get at. They
So
were
like
poor.
there's that scarcity there, which is probably the reason why Pock's obsessed with food in the first place. And like even if you go back to the loyal print, Prick is a servant. So like again, the food scarcity is there. And that's something where they're gonna want to eat as much as possible because like you don't know when you're gonna get it again. And like this isn't something that's easy to get over even after you know that it's safe because we see even throughout the book like Pock's always like food motivated even
Mm-hmm.
when she does get snacks at Key's house and all that like no matter how much you know it's going to be there that the motivation to eat as much as possible is something that's not easy to get past. So I really loved getting to know more about Pock in this chapter.
Yeah, that's all really valid points and valid comparison to like Prick and the Loyal Pin because like even with the again Prick and Annan and then Kie and Pock, you still have like a bit of a class distinction between the friend, the point of view character, and the sidekick, basically, which I don't love, but that's part of life. But anyway, so Pock ends up at Key's house, and Key's mom is there. And so, like, Pock basically gets to meet most of Key's family actually at this gathering. And Key explains what happened and why Pock is there. And Key's mother is really like touched by what Pock did. And so she's like, I'll make you a ton of food as a thank you. And she also compliments Pock. Like, she tells her, like, oh, you're so cute, you're so sweet, all this stuff. And by the end tells Pock, you can call me mom instead of just like miss or whatever. And just like Pock had no mother because she was orphaned. So she was so beyond happy to hear this. It was really like heartwarming and touching. And it's like that's really part of the thing that solidifies their friendship is that Pock gets like welcomed into Key's family. And like Pock never really had a family like that. It was just her and her grandmother. So like it just changed her life basically in a big way, in a way she wanted. And Pock was like, I was so happy in that moment. Because again, before Key, it was just like people bullying her by the way she looked. Whereas like Key's mom was like, oh, you did this thing? Wow, you're the greatest person. You know what I mean?
Yeah. This part in the book, I had so many highlights and just every note was like the sobbing emoji and like they just more and more and as soon as like you can call me mom. Like it's just
So cute.
it just touched my heart for Pock because from Pock's monologue, we see that she's already was drawn to Key's mom because she would have been the same age as her mom and
Mm-hmm.
like she's like there's this mother figure and like that's what she wants and Key's mom like in a way like recognized this need and saw her as her own daughter in this moment too. It just makes me so happy and in a way this really does make Pock Key's first wife because this is her being welcomed into the family like this is the daughter-in-law.
Yeah, we'll get into the wives thing later, but yeah, this was a big moment for Pock, and it was really sweet to hear how she's like, "Oh, I don't know what it's like to have a mom and what that love is like." And so this was like huge. And then Key's brother shows up, Ka, and he's like a lot like Kiran too, where he's like very good looking and but a giant goofball, just like his sister. And he shows up with like Pocky, the snack. And he gives it to them, and he's like, "Ha, Pocky, you guys should eat this." And so they are like, "Yeah, I guess." And Pock's like, "Food, yeah." So then they decide to make their name the Pocky Gang, and they each take a piece of like a Pocky stick. If you don't know what that is, it's like a little like circular like cookie wafer, and then it's usually dipped in icing or something. So then they like do like they each hold one and then they cross them like knights crossing swords, and they're like, from now on we are the Pocky Gang, like forever. And like that's how their friendship solidified, was like this like ceremony with the Pocky sticks, which was really cute and very them. When as you get to know them, you're like, they would do this, you know.
I want to talk more about this part though, because I love this whole thing. I did not expect it to be the brother is the one who named them. First of all, when he brought the Pocky, it was strawberry, and I believe Pock's like, I like chocolate better.
She would.
Which is hilarious. But also, like, he's the one who comes up with Pocky Gang, and I was just like, it's not even them who came up with it. They're just like, yeah, you know what, that fits. And then also when they're doing this like ceremony thing, Pock has this whole like vow for this gang, and I love that he is like, oh yeah, yeah, and then just puts the Pock describes it as Kie puts it to her forehead like it's a incense.
I guess like incense.
And just like, oh yeah, and then amen. And it's just like so unserious on Kie's part, while Pock's like so serious in this moment. I died. I want to see that. I want to see them get the little Pock, little Kie, and then have this scene, because it's gonna be adorable and hilarious.
I know. I really hope we get this in the show. I don't know what we'll get or what we don't get, but like it would be really cute just to have some glimpse of their origin story, because like these two are iconic and hilarious. Unserious is a great way to describe them. Something else that's really key to them. So, okay, so like introduction to them. Obviously, they're very goofy in the way they interact. And there's a reason for that. Not only is that just like their inner nature a little bit, but Kie mentions later in the series, in the book, in her inner monologue, that basically she learned to be really funny because of Pock. And Pock once told her that, like, hey, if you ever feel uncomfortable or embarrassed, just make a joke of it, and like as a defense mechanism. So like this really sets the tone for the entire book, because if you notice when Kie is being funny with other people, it's a lot of times because she's uncomfortable and doesn't know how to like handle the situation. But with Pock, they're just like constantly like, that's just their natural banter with each other, is they just like go back and forth in a like unserious way. But when they're with other people that they're not super, at least Kie, she's not super close to, you'll notice she tries to make jokes when she gets uncomfortable. So that's like a key that like, oh, Kiran's like uncomfortable if she's like joking. So it happens a lot with Pheem, when she's trying to like navigate the Pheem stuff and she like makes jokes to piss off Pheem. It's because she's uncomfortable.
Which makes for hilarity while you're reading it.
It's so fucking
maybe
funny.
Some frustration for Pheem, but you know.
Yes.
Very entertaining.
Well, Pheem's like, you like doing this on purpose, don't you? Anyway. Okay, so that's as far back as we go. And then the book is basically broken up. At least volume 1 is broken up mainly into 2 sections. So it's like them in high school and then college. And those are basically the 2 distinction points. So we'll just kind of like group it that way. So and high school spans from when they're like 15, 16 to like 17, 18, depending on when we read it. So it's like it's like 2 years-ish is like spent in high school, and then we like go to freshman year of college, basically. So starting off in high school. This is when we get the beginning of Pheem and Kie. And basically like these two are a complementary opposite type of couple, where like each person has different traits and they balance each other out. So it can be broken down in my mind to like how they appear on the outside versus who they are on the inside. So outward appearance versus actual personality. So like Kie, like I mentioned, is outwardly intimidating, but internally is not. And one of the things Kie mentions in her inner monologue is that she hates confrontation. So she one time says in her inner monologue, I was more comfortable with being gone than facing someone. Meaning like she would rather run away from a problem than like confront it head on. She's very like conflict averse. Mm-hmm. So which is like the opposite of what you think about if you saw someone like Kie, who's really like intimidating and looks super capable, but she's like, I'd rather not get into this. I'm just gonna leave. So she's flight, not fight. Versus Pheem, who's fight, not flight. Whereas like, okay, so then Pheem, you get Pheem. So Pheem on the outside is like this tiny little sweet looking human. But on the inside, like she would cut a bitch without hesitation, with like zero regrets. So like she's fight versus Kiran is flight. At least when they start.
We're kind of doing the cinnamon roll thing right now. The looks
Yeah.
like a cinnamon roll will kill you. That is
Pheem will
Pheem.
fucking kill you and not blink. Like she's a ticking time bomb.
Key's flight, but she's also just avoidance. Because, like, she'll give in just to, like, avoid causing issues.
Which is a form of flight. She's not fighting. She's just like, I'll just whatever, so I don't have to engage with this. Like disengagement versus engagement. But they evolve over time. This is like when we meet them in the beginning, is what they're kind of like. And then they start like rubbing off on each other, which is really great. They actually grow quite a bit in this aspect throughout the first book, which is amazing. Then let's also talk the other thing about their outward appearance. So Pheem is the one that like follows. So in schools in Thailand, they where they have a uniform. So Pheem is one of the girls who like follows the uniform to the T. She's like always like in her uniform with the hair ribbons in high school and always looks presentable. Versus Kie refuses to wear the school uniform unless she has to, and instead, to get around that, her and Pock took physical education or PE electives every day of the week so they can get away with wearing PE clothing, like basically like track pants and like a comfortable shirt. That's something I would do. Like that's genius. Then you don't have to wear the tie and shit. Like, well done, well played, ma'ams.
I love that they did that. Me personally, I could never. I mean, for us, like, we would have to change out of that, but whatever. Kudos to them. I know that they play basketball though, so they like PE, but that's a lot of PE.
Well, she was like, they had a different activity every single day. So, like, one day is basketball, one day is like ping pong. It's not always like running around sports.
Yeah.
But, like, that's genius. I would definitely do that so I wouldn't have to wear a uniform. Like, I love that. They do that every year of high school, which is iconic. So, then there's one scene where, like, Kie has to, like, compete in this academic competition because she's, like, the top of the school. And she's like, yes, me, Kiran, I'm wearing my school uniform. She's, like, pissed off about it. And then everybody's swooning over her when she wears her PE or like her actual uniform. She's like, I hate this. Like, she's so funny.
It's like, this is why I don't do this.
Yeah, exactly. So it's another way for her to like not attract attention because she's more avoidance / flight than fight, the way Pheem is.
You would think that would draw more attention though, considering they're not wearing the regular uniform.
I mean, it does from like one old school teacher that they point out likes to harass them for wearing PE uniforms. But like, I guess when she's more dressed up, people are like, wow, you clean up well. Look at how hot she is. And she's like, I don't want this attention.
Yeah.
So the other way they're different is academically. So Kie is naturally incredibly intelligent. She has a high aptitude for math. So she's like, that leads to her to become a future engineer later. And she's barely studies, never gets tutored, and she's just at the top of the class. So she's incredibly smart. And then you contrast that with Pheem, who like struggles to succeed academically, like without extra help. So she always has to go to cram school, extra tutoring, all this kind of stuff, just to like maintain an acceptable, I guess, GP. I'm not sure how they grade schools, but like an acceptable standing in the school versus Kie, who's just number one without trying too hard, basically. But as we get to know Pheem a little bit more, we realize that she's actually under a ton of pressure from her family to do so. So that's another way that they're different.
I know we're talking about differences, but like with the ability in school, I know Kie is definitely like school's like just natural for her, but we find out later that Kie was making like writing everything down for Pheem to help her understand it more in a book, and in a way that was her studying too. So like Pheem really helped her as well by Kie doing that for Pheem.
True.
And when Kie's describing Pheem, like she says like she's having a Disneyland vibe, and I think I assume she means the general vibe when he's around her, because the monologue says, "It took me a while to adjust to her Disneyland vibe, both in our behavior and this weird feelings that kept getting weirder." So I assume like this is probably because Pheem is bubbly around her. But also, Kie acts pretty giddy and childish every time she thinks of Pheem. So
Yeah.
hence the weird feelings that keep getting weirder.
It's
So,
cute. Well, it's like them coming into like having romantic feelings versus just
yeah.
being like, I like this person, but it's more than like hanging around with Pock and I feel weird. This was kind of how like Chow described in Affair when she was describing in the novel when she's describing like Juan and playing when playing's like, I feel really weird around Juan and I don't know why. Why do I suddenly feel really weird? Because it is weird. It's like a new feeling when you start like romantically being into somebody. So I assume that, and I wonder if Disneyland vibe also too, because like Pheem's kind of like a princess in a way. Like she's like socially at the top, and she's like the most like she's really clean, like clean and presentable looking, kind of like a princess would be. But she's like a violent princess. I
She's
don't know.
violent.
She's really violent.
We do have some of them.
Right. So it's not like out of the realm of Disney. Maybe, but there's also like that fairy tale quality, like you're saying. Like it's magical being around Pheem. It's a cute
I
way to
just love that
describe it.
description of like the vibe
Yeah.
from
Ain't wrong.
Monmaw.
She ain't wrong.
Monmaw does a great job of describing things and like relating things to what's going on.
Yeah, it's very well done. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. So how do they start like interacting? So basically, Pheem like it all starts with like Pheem insisting they walk home together is kind of like the main gist of what happens. So Pheem is like this really wealthy girl, and she has a designated driver that takes her home from school after cram school. So she like goes to class, then goes to cram school, and by the time she leaves, it's nighttime. So a driver takes her home at night. And then Kie, who doesn't go to cram school, just loiters at the school. And one day, Pheem runs into Kie, and she's like, "Why are you here?" And Kie's like, "Well, I like the Indian cork trees that are here and like the pond." And she's like, "My house doesn't have this, and I find this really peaceful." So Kie usually just hangs around the school because she likes the vibe, and then Pock hangs out with her, and they usually like play chess and like play games together before they go home. So Kie just happens to be like loitering around the school, and then poor Pheem is like studying her ass off, and then she leaves, and there's like Kie hanging around the school. So Pheem's like, "That's interesting that what you just told me." So she files that away. And then Kie's like, "Pheem just keeps showing up now when I'm like loitering around the school." So Pheem like goes and finds Kie after cram school or right before cram school starts. And then basically flirts with Kie, and Kie like it goes over Kie's head. Because Kie is like super oblivious when people are interested in her for like a very long time. Or like the whole time, actually. And
Relatable.
yeah, and then Pheem tries to like engage with Kie in like these activities that she likes after school. So she tries to play chess with her, which Kie notes in her inner monologue. She's like, "Yeah, Pheem plays chess with me, but she knows less about chess than Pock. So mostly we're just fooling around." So it's not serious, which is cute. So Kie goes along with it. She's like, "Hey, this is fun anyway," even though she's a disaster at chess. And my favorite escalation of this, so then Pheem notices that Pock's always around. So Kie's like starts bringing snacks, like expensive ones, okay, which lures Pox into the mix of what this is. So then Kie's like in her inner monologue, she's like, "My friend Pock started arriving earlier, worrying about me having to share the snacks without telling her." So then Pock purposely hangs out, waiting for Pheem, because she's like, "I'm not letting you eat all the snacks by yourself, Kie. Some of these are mine, bitch." Like, and they're not really for Pock, but Pock's like, "I'm waiting." So then it becomes like a 3-person activity, not just Pheem and Kie.
It always comes back to snacks.
It really does. But like that gets them all to bond, which is really, really good and one of my favorite things in the novel. And so through these activities, P and Kie get to know each other a little bit better, and then they learn that they actually live pretty close by. And Kie walks home from school. She's like, I don't got to drive her. I just walk. It's not that far. So Pheem hatches this plan to walk home from school with Kie so she can spend more time with her, basically. And apparently, we learn later when we get to know Pheem more that she had to go through all kinds of lengths to get her family to agree to this. So, and Kie notes this. She's like, wow, she worked really hard to do, like, well, just walk home with me. And so it's the first clue that we get that Pheem's family is super controlling. And it's until we get to like chapter 4, like Kie will admit that she starts purposefully loitering after school to align her schedule with Pheem. So she like naturally will do things to make stuff easier for Pheem. And then Pheem is really funny. She's like, wow, Kie, you must be really dedicated to basketball practice after school. And it's like, no, I was waiting for you, which is really cute. But she doesn't admit that. It's adorable. The way like Kie is an action person. Like she shows her affection through actions without saying anything. She's one of those characters who has problems verbalizing it, but like through her actions you can tell what she does and doesn't care about. And Pheem doesn't miss it. Yeah. All right.
And also like the way that she was able to get permission to walk home with Kie is Kie has to be there.
Yes.
Right? Like Pheem is not allowed to walk home by herself.
Yeah, somebody
so that's
older.
Like the stipulation of this.
Yeah, exactly. Kie has to be the one. Like, so I don't remember if it had to be Kie specifically, but somebody had to walk her home is the thing. Because like it's nighttime and she's little. Like I mean, even if the parents weren't controlling, that'd be kind of concerning because she's she's tiny and you'd be afraid something bad would happen to her, or like a wild dog would attack her or some shit. She diddle. But they don't know how violent she is. Maybe if they knew that, seriously, they'd be like, you'll be all right,
it's girl. Like, really, it's Pheem the one protecting Kie, so.
Yeah, it's protecting Thailand from Pheem. All right, so then we get into chapter 2 where we get actual, like, more explicit flirting that's really fucking funny. So Pock and Kie are on the basketball team, and this section is called Love and Basketball because they have like a basketball game, and that's the plot of this chapter, and it's really funny. Something I want to note from this is that there's this group at the school called the Candy Gang, and apparently they're like a bunch of fangirls that just fangirl over stuff. And apparently Kie is one of the things they fangirl over. So they like come to the basketball games with like signs. And they have this in the pilot with the Candy Gang just like fawning all over Kie, which I like. I'm like, cool. I like them fangirling over another girl. I kind of love that. But like,
yeah, that's very interesting that's what's going on.
I think they fangirl over stuff in general, but like Kie is one of the things. And there is one girl from this gang. Her nickname in the novel, I think, is Creme, maybe, or Cream. I can't tell. It's like Creme. You could pronounce it either way in English, not entirely sure. But Pheem is not appreciative of the way she homes in on Kie. And that, which is funny, but we're not going to focus on that. So like Candy Gang's here because it's a basketball game. And, there's a crowd. And like I mentioned, Kie and Pock are both on the basketball team. And by that, I mean, Kie is like a starter. She like actually plays. And Pock is self-described 6th string on the bench. But Kie notes she eats after the game like she played the entire time. Icon. What an icon.
No, she still trains with you. Doesn't matter. But yes, I love that.
I love that. She's like, you didn't even play. But anyway, so at this time of filming, we do have some stills behind the scenes and both on screen of them playing their basketball games. So we're definitely getting the basketball scene in some format, which is going to be really exciting. So what's notable about this basketball game is that this is the first game that Pheem shows up for, and she attends just to cheer on Kie, which is really cute. And so Kie, who's playing the game, gets distracted when she notices Pheem on the sidelines, and then gets knocked out by another player who like collides into her, who's like running, and Kie's distracted, and she's just like, oh, that hurts. And then she's like, darkness. Then I woke up, and then she's like, why is my head warm? And basically she wakes up with her head in Pheem's lap and starts gay panicking immediately. And then and Pheem notices this and she's like, Kie, are you okay? You look really red. Are you still hurt? Because she's like getting flustered and like embarrassed. And so then Kie notes what Pheem does. So she says, Pheem wipes the hair off of my face. Then she felt my forehead because she's like, are you okay? And then my cheek with the back of her hand. She's like, how is that even relevant? So like Pheem is just like using the excuse to like feel her up a little, which was really funny. Which I just
you
love.
know what?
She's like, this seems gay. This seems gay, Pheem. Just so funny.
Pheem does take advantage of opportunities.
Absolutely.
And she's very not shy with any of this. Like, she kind of makes her feelings very clear this entire high school experience.
It's because she's chasing an oblivious person, so she has to be more explicit because Kie's like, is this what doctors do? I don't think this is what doctors do. And it's like, girl, she likes you. It takes her years to figure out that Pheem likes her. So poor Pheem has to just keep chipping at the wall until Kie's like, oh, I see sunlight.
And we'll get into like the more obvious thing. Like, but she's very obvious the entire time.
But wait, yes, to that point, Kie is the only person this isn't obvious to. But let's like shoot over to everybody else. So after the game ends, so Kie's like out the rest of the game basically, and like Pheem kind of takes care of her, and by that I mean she chased away the actual first aid person and was like, "Don't fucking touch her," and like insisted on taking care of her, which was really funny. So after this game ends, Kie meets up with Pock to figure out like what happened when she was unconscious, basically. And so naturally, Pock gets a bunch of food, and she's more interested in the food than the conversation. So eventually, Kie's like, can you just tell me what happened? And Kie learns that Pock was like, well, actually, you getting knocked out was the best thing that happened because your lesbian activity with Pheem distracted the other team so much that we won the game, which is just amazing. And I hope this is part of the scene because this would be so fucking funny. So Pock is explaining this to Kie. She's like, well, you know, when your head was in Pheem's lap, like, basically, somebody missed the ball, then we got a 3-point shot, and then when she touched your cheeks, then we got another 3-point. So, like, every time they would do something, everybody's like, what are they doing? And so, like, their team would take advantage, and that's how they won the game, which is so fucking funny.
It's because the other school wasn't as progressive and didn't have a whole gang fawning over another girl, so they're not used to it.
They're not used to it, but it was so funny that that's how they won the game, was Pheem and Kie being gay disasters on the sidelines, which is just incredible. And Pock's like, when our team figured out that's what was distracting them, we just kept playing it up. It's just so funny and ruthless. And then in this conversation, Pock explains about, basically Pheem was like, how Pheem chased away the medic, essentially. And Kie's like, damn. So it's basically the first time you get to see how aggressively possessive Pheem is of Kie. This is like the very first time you see that, when she's literally chasing away a medical expert. Because she's like, don't you fucking touch her. I'll touch her.
Or at least someone who definitely knows more.
Well, yeah.
But one of my favorite exchanges that comes from this basketball situation is, I guess it's later when Pock and Kie are in class and have a conversation, and Pock tells Kie that she has, quote, become a buzz now because people are wondering if Kie and Pheem are together now because Kie had her head in Pheem's lap. And I love that Pock's like, I made an excuse for you. And Kie's like, what did you say? So this is the actual exchange. Pock says, I made an excuse in your stead. And Kie goes, so? And then Pock says, that I have no idea, and I'll ask you. And then Kie says, Pock, you're such an awful friend. I love that. I love that the excuse was, I don't know, I'll go ask
I don't know. No, they have a couple exchanges like that where, like, Pock's like, I got you, and then she throws her under the bus to save herself. Especially when Pheem's gonna get mad. So Pock figures out how, like, Pheem is basically a time bomb, and so, like, she'll be like, well, I'm not to anger her, I'll just give her what she wants at Kie's expense. There's so many times that happens. It's so funny.
And I love that, like, those things are not, like, like, they don't mean any harm by it. And they're
No.
both just fine with everything. And it's just part of their relationship.
It's just their
It's
relationship,
just
yeah.
so cute.
It's hilarious. They're so fucking
Even when
funny.
they're, like, insulting each other, they know that it's just all playful.
Yeah.
I
I
love
do.
it so much.
I
And it
love
makes it
that.
actually funny because they're like, you
Yeah.
know that there's no other intention.
It's not malicious at all. It's like literally that is their dynamic from the beginning. They just banter with each other. It's hilarious. God, I love them. Okay, so now that we're here, let's just do a quick kind of recap of the Kie and Pheem's preamble, basically, before they get to start getting together, basically, what happens. So, obviously, because we must have drama scenes, there's a lot of back and forth and miscommunication between Kie and Pheem before they get together. Because again, coming from who they are in the beginning, Kie is the type of person who has a problem communicating her feelings, and she admits this later, which is huge and really great. But like she's a child. They're like 15, 16. They're young. So they're still learning how to do that. So Kie's really bad at that. Pheem just gets outwardly aggressive. She's also bad at processing her feelings in a different way and just gets violent, basically. So there's miscommunication happening because they have big feelings and Kie doesn't know how to say them, and then Pheem gets violent. So like it doesn't like work at the beginning. So they got to grow a little bit more. So there's some back and forth. But during their whole time in high school, there's like a ton of like really sweet moments between them where you can obviously see they care about each other. And there's a lot of funny moments between them and with Pock and just the school. And one of my favorite things, though, that gets established really early on is that amazingly, Pheem, despite being super possessive of Kie, like in the whole basketball thing, she's really respectful of Pock's place as Kie's codependent best friend. And vice versa. Like, Pock is also respectful of Pheem when it's obvious that, like, Pheem is going to be important in Kie's life. So when Kie and Pheem finally do get together, like later on, this is just time jumping. Kie worries about this aspect. She's like, oh, how is Pheem gonna like impact me and Pock? Because I'm gonna be spending more time with Kie or with Pheem. What if Pock feels neglected? And so she asks Pock, she's like, are you gonna be okay with this? Pock, who's like been like, can you two just kiss for like years? She's like, Pock, are you gonna be cool with this? And Pock shrugs it off. She's like, I'm good. Pheem's just the second wife. Kie's reaction to this was my favorite. In her inner monologue, she's like, after Pock says this, because Pock's like, I'm the first wife, obviously. Duh, nobody knows you as good as I do. Which is true, which is basically she's saying that, like, I'm your best friend and nothing can change that. Which goes to show how strong their friendship is and that friendships are just as important, if not more important sometimes. Which I love. I love that Monmaw took the time to, like, make this point with their friendship. But Kie's reaction to this was hilarious. So in her inner monologue, she's like, I had been single my whole life, but when I had a wife, I had two. But man, the two wives got along so well. Just like,
Which
I was
is
single,
the best
and I
thing
got
ever
two
for you.
wives. She's so fucking funny. But they run with this the whole time. The first wife, second wife thing sticks the rest of the book, which is so fucking funny.
I love it. And we eventually do get the Pheem's point of view with the viewing of Kie and Pock's relationship. And I put that later, but it's very sweet.
Yeah, it's cute.
I just love that everybody is so comfortable. I'm not saying the right word, but
they're respectful of each other's relationships, respectively, basically.
Yeah.
But like Pheem is still Pheem when she first meets Pock. She's like, I've thought about trying to usurp Pock, but if Kie had the ultimatum, I know she'd pick Pock. So like, it's not worth it. I have to live with this. And so they do.
Oh yeah. I love that she knows that Kie would pick Pock over her.
That's her best friend.
And is totally fine with that.
Right.
But I feel like Pheem and Pock are very similar in certain aspects, which is maybe what draws Kie to both of them. One of the things is that, sorry, I almost said Kie. Pheem and Pock are both violent when they're.
That's true. Oh shit, that's true. They
like,
are both
they
violent.
both like just start like hitting her, like hitting Kie, like not.
Oh my god.
Like actually violently, but just as a joke when they're like bantering.
The amount of times that Pock kicks Key's shins under tables is a lot.
And just like the thump like on the head.
Yeah, the
and,
head thumping.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
It's so funny.
There was one time where there was just like, I don't know if she was punching, or it might have been Pock, punching Key's like shoulder multiple times, like in one conversation. And Key's just like, what is happening? But like, Key's fine with it because it's not malicious.
No, it's not. Same with Pheem.
It's like, something.
Same with Pheem. Yeah.
But they both have that in common. And as soon as it happened with Pheem too, I'm like, oh my god, this is... She gets it from both sides.
I didn't put that together. That's really good. The violent wives.
Yeah, damn. But
Key has a type.
They behave very similar. And like, even like the bantering, it goes all around. So really, they all fit well. And no, I'm not gonna say like, oh, they should all get together this time. Like, no, Pock is very comfortable in her position too. She's like, I'm here. You two be together. But I'm still
Just
here.
Kiss. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I love the dynamic between them. And it'll be
I
fun to see more of.
I agree. I really love their dynamic with a healthy friendship between Kie and Pock, and a healthy friendship that forms, well, kind of healthy, that forms between Pock and Pheem. There's fear on Pock's side, but like overall, they're pretty healthy. And then you have Kie and Pheem. So yeah, I enjoy their dynamic a lot, and the way they grow throughout the whole time, which is also really great. Okay, and then so speaking of their dynamic and what I really love, so one thing I really love is the way Pock helps Kie process her feelings. So that's one aspect of their friendship that I think is really important, especially when they're young, and Monmaw takes the time to explicitly show us this. So by the time we get to chapter 3, Kie basically is getting, so like you mentioned, there's buzz around the school being like, oh, are Pheem and Kie dating? Because what was that? That was lesbian activity. So the Candy Gang, I think, is like, wow, Kie, are you dating Pheem? What's going on? And she, in her head, because her and Pheem have not talked about this, and she's like, well, I don't know what Pheem's thinking, or if she'd be freaked out by this, if this was even a rumor. So she just says what's on her mind, and she yells out loud that they're not dating, which is true, because they're not. And Pheem overhears this because of the way Kiran like yells it to basically shut this down. She's like, can you stop this? I don't know how Pheem's gonna take this. But she doesn't say all that. So she just yells, we are not dating. Which is true. And then Pheem overhears it and gets real sad. And then Kie doesn't understand why. So she talks to Pock about it. And she's like, Pock, what did I do? What did I do wrong? I don't understand. I told the truth. And Pock says, besides the real truth, which is what Kie said, they're not dating. That is the truth. There's also the how you feel truth. You just said the real truth. And Pock says, so what about the how you feel truth? You ever ask yourself about that, Kie? So what she's saying is she's like, okay, yes, that was true, Kie, but like, how do you feel about Pheem? Because that could be different than the fact that you're not dating, but like, how do you feel about, do you want to date Pheem is basically what she's saying. And Kie doesn't say anything because she doesn't know how. And Pock says, how you really feel about Pheem, you're the only one who can answer that question. Like, so she's basically telling her, she's like, think about that. Like, process your feelings. And I love that kind of conversation with Pock because it's just such a good, like, healthy friend dialogue that's not just like, you're an idiot flick.
Yeah. It's like they're not just joking all the time. Like, there's real moments between them.
Right. Yeah, there's real moments.
They do help each other to grow.
They're mostly centered around Kie and Kie's growth, but she's the main character. And yeah, exactly. This is a serious conversation that they're having with each other. And so I like that they're good sounding boards for each other. And basically, like, the emphasis on, like, process your feelings, Kie. Like, you have to do that. That's the only way to solve this, which is not easy to do.
Pock's also really good at observing.
Yeah.
And being that person, like, to know everything that's going on and not tell Kie what's going on, but just help her get there.
Because like Pock said later, she's like, I'm the first wife because I know you better than anybody. She does, like, they've spent years together at this point, so they do know each other really, really well. And so she must know this about Kie, that Kie's really bad at expressing her feelings. So that's why she's like, okay, but if you're going to date her, you need to express your feelings. So, like, you should probably work on that, is Kie. So, all right. So then high school is a lot of back and forth, this and that. And then we get to the last day of high school where the seniors do the thing where they have, like, all the permanent markers and everybody, like, draws on each other's shirt, like hags and, like, all that stuff. Like, So Kie spends all day being like, I'm gonna do it, Pock. I'm gonna confess my love to Pheem. And it does not work out because Kie is terrible at expressing her feelings. So I think it doesn't work out. She tries, and it fails miserably. So then Pheem beats her to it because she's like, let me sign your shirt. And basically, she's like, damn, she's spending forever back there. What are you doing, Pheem? Pheem's like, shut up, Kie. Kie's like, fine. And then she's like talking to Pock. She's like, man, Pock, I failed and this and that. And Pock's like, I don't think you got to worry about it. I think you're good because Pheem wrote on your back, like the entire back in giant Sharpie, reserved, and then her name, meaning like she's mine. Pheem.
In the show, the
Bold.
translation was taken. Well, in the
Yeah.
pilot, taken, and I'm like, again,
Yeah, reserved.
Pheem's
Yeah.
not subtle.
She's not subtle. And then she signs her name with a heart, like Pheem's. Basically, she's writing the Kie belongs to Pheem. But it was so funny. And Pock's just like, you're good, Kie. Pheem basically said it for you. Oh my god. Okay, so then so Pheem's the confessor by the end of this. When they're in high school, though, they do end up going on kind of their first date, and how they get there is really fucking funny. So this is in chapter 6, and basically this happens because Kie wins a PE challenge set by Pheem. So Pheem is like, basically they're like in class together and like they're split up into groups, and it's like Kie, Pock, and this other like sports star, and they're like, we're gonna win no matter what this is, and everybody knows it, including Pheem. So Pheem's like, okay, Kie, how about we make this more interesting and we bet each other? And Kie's like, okay, girl, you're gonna lose. And Pheem's like, am I though? And she's like, how about this? If I win, you treat me to ice cream, and if you win, I treat you to a movie. And so Kie's like, oh shit, that's a date. That's a date. Well, it could be a date. She's like, wait, is that a date? Is that a date? I don't know. So anyway, Kie wins, obviously, and they end up at the movies, and Pheem, this whole ordeal is so funny. It's like Pheem is being like super annoying about stuff because she wants, it's a date in her mind. She's like, do all the things for me, Kie. And she's like, Kie, I need you to get me popcorn so we can eat it. And then Kie's like, aren't we gonna eat ice cream? Why are you trying to eat all this other food? And then she's like, pretty please. And then Kie's like, in her inner monologue, she's like, pretty please. Just one sweet word from Pheem made me float. If someone were to have a heart attack and die from sweetness overdose, that'd be me. If not for what followed. Pheem starts yelling, Kie, are you eating? You're just spacing off. And Kie's thoughts are like, okay. Pheem's still Pheem. Pretty, but aggressive. She couldn't stay that sweet for so long, no matter how hard she tried. It's so funny. So funny.
Again, Kie's inner thoughts with everything just make every interaction 100 times better.
It really does. But like, so like basically like Pheem, I assume Mary's gonna have to play Pheem and being like constantly oscillating from like really sweet and innocent looking to just like a firecracker, and like 5 seconds later just like exploding with anger. This was so funny. I mean, it's so funny the way Kie's like, wow, she's dreamy and perfect, and then she just starts yelling at her, and she's like, there's the old Pheem. She's back. So
again, it is like Pock, though.
It's so funny. Okay, but the fact that she gets popcorn is important because then we get the popcorn eating scene from the pilot that these two, as actors, will kill because they're really good at this kind of longing shit that they do. So basically, like, Pheem feeds Kie the popcorn, and go watch the pilot because these two, they were the stars in My Marvelous Dream Is You, which the way Idol Factory did that show, it was 90% sexual tension and anticipation of stuff, and then like 1% payoff, because these two have the anticipatory like tension stuff down hardcore, and this scene is like all about that because it's rife with sexual tension. Because then Kie's inner monologue as this is going on is hilarious because she's like, what is this movie even about? I couldn't grasp it because this girl beside me kept feeding me popcorn like I was a bird.
I mean, at least it wasn't like a mama bird and she was chewing it up and then trying to put it in your mouth, so.
No, but she kept like feeding it with her hands, and then like Kie was like, Pete would be like, don't bite my fingers, that tickles, because like Kie was doing it in a sexual way. And then anyway, so that's going to be a scene to look forward to when that happens, because these two actors, like I said, they're good at that shit. Okay, so then the movie ends, and Pheem's like, now I want ice cream. So Pheem gets everything from this date, not just the movie, the ice cream. She gets everything. And she's like, let's go get ice cream. So then Kie, this is one of my favorite irrational Pheem moments. It's so funny. They go to get ice cream, and Kie's like, I'm so full after eating all that goddamn popcorn. I just want the smallest thing possible of ice cream that I can get. She's like, give me a single scoop of cookies and cream, and we'll be good. And then Pheem is upset by her ice cream choice. And Kie's like, I don't know why she's upset by this. So then she confronts Pheem, something she's bad at doing. She actually confronts her, and she's like, well, why are you mad? I don't like that many ice cream flavors. Why are you mad that I chose this? And Pheem's like, because cookies and cream, and I guess cream is the name of that Candy Gang member. So Pheem's getting irrationally mad because of the name. And then she's like, well, instead of that, you should have ordered cookies and Pheem, which I love the pun. That was so good. Because she hates
the pun is great.
King. It's great.
But
this was funny.
I forget what word you used. But like, Kie is rightfully confused when
it's confusing.
Pheem is upset about that, because like, it's a flavor. Like, why are you so pissed off? And then Kie's inner monologue, it says, oh wow, women were complicated.
I love that line.
I love that line so much.
So funny.
But I do agree, because I personally, especially in the beginning, found Pheem exhausting to read. Just because you did not know, again, it's the firecracker. You had no idea what was going to happen.
No.
Like, especially high school Pheem, and she always got upset at the smallest things. And like, even if she was joking, like, she made it a bigger issue than it should have been. And like, I get that there's that underlying, like, the Candy Gang member's name and like that conversation. But again, we already established that like, Kie doesn't read into things too. So she's not gonna get it unless you like tell her.
Correct.
But like, just say it. But again, I know we're in high school. It's hard to communicate.
Yes,
feelings
that's
are
the
rough.
underlying thing.
Like, and also we later learn that like, Pheem has so much going on and like her own issues that she's working through. But it is exhausting, and I'm surprised that I mean, like, feelings, that's what kept Kie going. But like, there were some times where I'm like, oh my god, really? That's what we're doing right now?
I mean, but also like, I understand what you're saying. It is kind of exhausting when you have the like overly possessive character. But because it was like humorous, it didn't bother me as much. And I think like with Kie, she found it entertaining sometimes more than, because she had Pock who would do weird stuff like that too. You know what I mean? So I think she was just like, you're speaking my language, even though there's like an underlying possessiveness here. But Kie sometimes would be like, I genuinely don't know what I did wrong. Like, what did I do wrong? And it's like, Pheem is having irrational big feelings. And it's like, sometimes there is no logic behind it, and it really isn't Kie. It's like something else. But your point is like, well taken. Like, that's what I meant earlier by like, there's a lot of miscommunication. It's because they both have issues expressing their feelings. But as you can see, even in this scene, like, Kie was willing to have the difficult, like, she stepped up and had the difficult conversation with Pheem, which is something she doesn't normally do. She normally just runs away or just avoids it. So Kie's already changing because of Pheem. And we'll start seeing like Pheem starts changing because of Kie, because she wants to communicate these things. Like, I don't think she wants to piss off Kie or like wants to feel jealous and stuff, but she doesn't know what to do with the feeling. And like, she's just terrified of losing Kie. That's like the thing, or like Kie's love more specifically. So she's scared a lot of the time.
Which is definitely valid, especially when we learn more later.
Yeah, we'll get into Pheem and why she's like this, but when you don't know, it's just like, girl, chill.
It's definitely, you read it again and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
You see where everything is coming from. But like, when you're first reading it, I was just like, oh my gosh.
This was so funny. I also didn't put the Candy Gang member together with this conversation the first time. I was like, why was she mad about Key's ice cream choice? But the cookies and Pheem thing just made me laugh. And I was like, is she being mad to flirt with Key? That's how I read it the first time, where she was just like, how
That's
dare
how I
you?
read it.
You should have picked cookies and Pheem. But I think that it's also the name of the candy gang mayor, and that's why she was like, ugh, that woman pissed me off earlier.
That would make sense, but yeah, the first time I read it, I thought it was just her way to flirt, and like I was like, really, you're gonna cause issues right now just so you could flirt and say this line?
Well, it's kind of like,
so that's
it's not really causing issues. It's kind of like doing that thing where you're like pout, like she's pouting. It's also hard to read, like we don't get a lot of like facial expression
yeah.
Description, so it's kind of hard to like tell how they're gonna play it. But like the other way you could read it is like Pheem is like kidding with Kiran, and is like, wow, I can't believe you chose that. Why would you do that? You should have chose this. Like, you know what I mean? It could be playful, and we're just not getting that in the translation.
It's kind of like a text message where you're like, it could be read multiple different ways, but it's all how you're interpreting it.
Yeah, so it'll be, I will see, I hope, based on the pilot and the style of the pilot, that most of this is gonna be just like more humorous and playful than it is like roller coastery with your emotions. The way Gap was constantly like highs and lows that were like, where you're crying constantly and then happy and crying. This feels more, it's just gonna be like, damn. You know what I mean? Like, oh my god, okay, P was fucking with me. You know, they're just fucking with each other in a non-malicious way. But I think this is Pheem flirting with Key. Also, like, they're 16-ish, so like they don't know how to flirt. They don't know how to date. Like Key is like, women are complicated. Like, they don't know what they're doing. They're just navigating this too as kids. And so like, you're gonna fuck up and do stupid shit like this. And just like, it's part of it. I'm not mad at it. But like Pheem needs anger management classes, like for sure. Poor girl.
Take Pock with you.
Oh my god, Pock would be really fucking funny. If there's free food at the anger management class, she'd be there. She'd be like, what is this class? Whatever, yeah, it's donuts. Anyway, so then we get Key's birthday. I think her 16th birthday, I think.
Yeah, I believe. Yes.
I think so. And something to know about Key is that Key doesn't like her birthday. She doesn't, again, I find this relatable. She's like, I don't understand the big deal here. And so the only person who knows that is Pock, who doesn't make a big deal about her birthday, but then like the candy gang makes a big deal out of it. Everybody else makes a big deal out of it, and Key finds it really exhausting. So by the end of the day, Pheem finds her to give her a gift, and this makes Key's day. By the end, she's like, maybe birthdays aren't so bad. But this was really cute. So Pheem makes her a plushy pig. And it's so homemade that Key has no idea what it's supposed to be. And Pheem's worried when Key's like inspecting this thing. And Pheem's like, it's ugly, isn't it? And Key's like, no, it's just horrible. Like Pheem hits her. And then she's like, sorry.
What was the word?
And she's like, no, it's just horrible. But she's like, sorry. She's like, I love it the most of all of my presents. Thank you, Pheem. But what is it, a monster? This was such a funny conversation. She's also an asshole, right back to Pheem. So it's like they balance each other out. This was so funny, this thing. But Key is so touched by this because like she obviously put a lot of time and effort into making this thing. But then Pheem also tells her, she's like, I made it to look like you. And so when Key's looking at this, she's like, how do I read into this? This thing is hideous. Is this what she thinks of me? This was so funny. But Key loves this thing, and she ends up naming it Piggy. And going forward, the two of them treat this plushie like it's their child. Like Key's the dad and then Pheem's the mom, which is so cute. And that's how they refer to this plushie, as like their love child, basically. And I love it. It's adorable.
It's really cute. The question is, will Idol Factory make this merch?
Yes, I think they will. If we got Sasha Bunny, I think we're gonna get Piggy.
Will it be a monster, or will it be like an actual pig? Like, will they make sure that it's
cute
ugly?
As fuck?
Yeah, that'd be
Let us know in the comments what you think. Will we have Piggy the merch, and is it gonna be novel accurate or sellable accurate?
Pig accurate. So, I mean, like, they make ugly dolls. That's a whole brand.
Right.
So, like, is it going to be like that? Never know. people will buy it. And
Absolutely,
whatever
people
they
will
do,
buy it.
people are gonna buy it.
People are gonna fucking buy this thing. Who doesn't want the lesbian love child, Piggy? Okay, so before we jump into university stuff, let's highlight some favorite Pock and Kie moments.
Yeah.
All right.
Which is
So
amazing.
my
Love
favorite
Pock and Kie.
my favorite scene that made me fall in love with basically the novel had to do with my favorite Pock and Kie moment. So it's in chapter 4, and the context for this scene is that Kie is irrationally upset with Pheem because she overheard Pheem and her little Mrs. gang talking about their crushes. Basically, they're like the Gossip Girls. They're basically sitting there and they're like, "Oh, I think this boy's cute. I think this boy's cute." And they're like, "Pheem, who do you think is cute?" And Pheem like didn't want to engage in this conversation at all. And so they're like, "No, tell us what your type is if you're not going to name a person." And Pheem's like, "Well, I guess I like somebody who's tall, stoic, smart." And then one of her friends are like, "That sounds like Kie." And Kie is like in the room with them, and she was like drawing or working on something and had her headphones on. She's like, "I turned that shit off so I could hear this." And so she's eavesdropping on this conversation, or Pheem is describing her essentially. And then Pheem doesn't say anything because gay panic. And so one of her friends are like puts words into her mouth basically, and she's like, "Well, it could be Kie, or it could be Bomb, who's this guy in the class who's not smart." And so he like doesn't really fit the description. And then Pheem quietly mumbles, "Mm-hmm." And then that sets off Kie. She's like, "Wow, she's into Bomb. What the hell?" And then she's so upset and she doesn't know how to process these emotions that when Pheem is like, "Okay, let's walk home today," Kie is basically like, doesn't say this, but she essentially needs time to process her feelings and doesn't know how to say that. So instead she tells Pheem like, "I don't want to walk home with you anymore," because she needs to process this shit, but she doesn't know how to communicate that. So it comes off as "leave me alone forever," which crushes Pheem. And so Kie, who can't handle her big feelings, goes to find Pock, her like confidant. And she basically avoids Pheem for a while. And Pock asks her, she's like, "Why are you avoiding Pheem?" But Kie doesn't know how to answer this. So Pock's like, she's like, "Is this about Pheem saying Bomb is something of her type?" And Kie's thoughts are, "I swiveled to Pock so fast I could sprain my neck. My friend was turning into some kind of supernatural being. Is there anything she doesn't know about?"
No, the answer's no.
Yeah. Which is so funny because Kie's like, "How do you know about this?" And Pock, oh my god, this is my favorite moment. So she asks Pock, "How did you know about this, about the Pheem and Bomb thing?" And so Kie's in her monologue. "Pock had no interest in responding to me since her hopeful eyes were set on a food cart a distance away. Then she left me to my own question for a while before returning with a large bag of meatballs." And Pock comes back. She's like, "I bought crab sticks for you. Kie, thanks. But can't you answer my question first?" So this made me laugh so hard because she's like having this conversation with Pock, and then she's like basically like Pock's eyes glazed over, and she wandered to like in the middle of their conversation, Pock just fucks off to go get food, and then comes back and she's like, "I got you snacks," and Kie's like, "Can you answer? Can we go back to our conversation? You just left mid conversation to go get food." It was so fucking funny.
This is what it's like having a conversation with someone who has ADHD, by the way.
So fucking funny. Poor Kie. Kie's like, "I guess, but like, answer my question." And then basically Pock makes it through most of the food before she answers Kie again. It's so fucking funny. This takes like 30 minutes for Kie to get like an answer to this one question. It's so funny. That was when I was like, I love this novel. This was the funniest description I've ever heard in my life of just like trying to have a conversation with Pock. So funny.
So we know that for Pheem, like she knows that if given the ultimatum, Kie would choose Pock over her. But
For sure.
if Kie told Pock to choose food or her, what would Pock choose?
Food. Well, without food you die. Like that.
Well, no, I mean like, okay, what about snacks? Because like meals, like she'd
Oh,
have to
yeah.
give up either snacks or her.
I feel like she'd choose
It is
Kie.
hard.
It is hard. I don't think it's an easy decision, but I think she would choose Kie in the end because then she'll be like, "I'll just eat all your food, Kie. It's fine. You'll give me snacks or something. We'll make it work."
It's
They're
just like it's funnier. It's funny that that's a harder decision than like there. You don't know which decision would be made rather than like Pock or Pheem.
yeah. I just think they're so codependent that they would both choose each other in the end, but there would be some buffoonery before we got the actual answer, you know what I mean? Which is why I love them. Okay, other thing I love about Pock is the way Pock engages with all the Pheem stuff. So she's not just like a jealous friend who's like, "Wow, Kie, you're just like ignoring me," and blah blah blah. Pock dives full head first into, "Oh, somebody has a crush on my friend, and my friend seems to like them." So she takes it upon herself to become the Pheem expert, and basically Pock is the one who teaches Kie how to not piss off Pheem. Like, how does she navigate Pheem? That comes, all the advice comes from Pock. And in Key's brain, she basically says, Pock once, Pock once said, I was Pheem's number one catalyst for Pheem explosion, aka Pheem kaboom, a phenomenon Pock devoted her time to continuous research. So it makes it sound like Pock is this mad scientist who's like studying Pheem. It's just so fucking funny. A Pheem explosion.
We do hear her say this in the pilot too,
Yes!
which is, so I'm really glad that that's gonna be something that sticks. But yeah, I mean, like I said, Pock is very observant. Like she would be the one to figure out Pheem. But yeah, studying. Do you think Pock has like a notebook? Just be like,
Right.
all right, this is how she acts. The scientific method hypothesis
Yes.
testing.
That is how I envision this. Like the way she's described it. Pock devoted her time to continuous research. I think she approached Pheem like a science experiment.
I want a quick flashback of them learning the scientific method in school and then her applying this to the
To Pheem?
situation.
That'd be so
Yeah.
fucking funny. I can definitely see that. All right. So one of the things we learn about during high school that will be relevant to the next section, which is college time, is Pheem's university conundrum, which comes from her family drama. So in chapter 9, the summer before senior year, we get our first insight into this, where Pheem is sent away to go to summer school in London. And this is the first time we kind of learn about Pheem's family stuff. So basically, Pheem is supposed to be abroad for 2 months in summer school in London, but then comes back to Thailand after a month and immediately finds Kie. And Pheem says, I requested an early return. I couldn't do it. Like, she couldn't stay away for 2 months, basically. And basically, like, she was having a hard time staying away from Kie. And then Kie, similarly, was having a really hard time staying away from Pheem. So they become kind of codependent in a different way with each other. And kind of like mopey and sad when they're separated, basically.
And this is their first taste of being separated. And this is without their feelings even being out in the open.
Right.
So, it's not going well.
No, not at all. So that's summer break. And then when senior year begins, Pheem confides in Kie about the university conundrum stuff when they're studying. So, because Kie is like, I don't understand why you're studying so hard all the time. Well, Kie doesn't understand that anyway because she's just gifted when academically.
Yeah.
But she's like, I don't understand why you're studying so hard because she always goes to cram school and all these things. And she's more motivated senior year than she was previously. So that's also what Kie is commenting on. And Pheem says, I have to get into the number one university in Thailand. I made a deal with my dad. If I can't get in, I have to study in a university in England. So basically, she has to get into like the Harvard of Thailand, basically the number one college. Otherwise, she's not allowed to stay in Thailand. So she's studying even harder than she was before. Because Pheem is so determined not to be separated from Kie that she makes this deal with her father. So it shows that like her relationship with her father, that love is conditional, and her household is incredibly strict and suffocating. And so like Pheem responds by going through crazy lengths to get what she wants and makes these bartering arrangements with her father. So Kie's like, well, damn, okay. So Pheem's like, well, what do you want to do? Or what college do you want to go to? And Kie's like, I don't really care what school I go to. I just know I like engineering. So basically they make this pinky promise deal where Kie's like, well, how about I get into the same school as you and then we can go to school together, basically. And then Pheem's like, that'd be great because that would actually motivate me more to study if I knew that the end result of getting in the best school is not just staying in Thailand, but like being with you in college. That's even better. That's the dream. So they make this little pinky promise, and that's when Kie, to your point earlier, helps Pheem with studying so that Pheem can get what she wants. So that's another way that Kie like kind of sacrifices for Pheem, because she doesn't need to study, but she's like, I'll do it if I will help you if that is what you want. So she actually spends time helping her, which is really cute. And we do have stills from them filming where they do the pinky promise, so this will happen in the show.
Okay, but like there's a pinky promise,
There
which
is.
means this is legally binding.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens if you break the law?
Pheem will punish Kie,
Well,
as always. Well, if they break this law, Pheem is getting exiled to England.
well,
And
yeah.
Kie will get punished by Pheem if she can't get into her school.
Yeah, I guess the pinky promise is that they won't be not that they won't be separated.
No, it's that
It's
Kie
just that
is
they
going to get into
in.
the same school
Yeah.
as Pheem. So Kie will also get into the #1 school in Thailand. That's the pinky promise.
Okay, but like again, you can't really whatever. You know what? Pinky promise. It's gonna happen.
It's going to happen.
All right. But before we get to college, we have to give some shout outs to our Chaos Crew members over on Patreon.
Woo!
Our Chaos Crew members on the Big Gay Ride or Die tier and above are Dana W, Amix Monzone _multi, Natalia, Danny, Cassie M, Here For It, Jill L, Regina B, and Monet F.
Woo!
And our featured Big Gay supporter members for this episode are Steve T, Kelly A, and Day. Thank you so much to everyone who supports us, whether it's on Patreon or any platform where you're consuming this podcast, sharing it with friends, just engaging with us. We see all of the support out there and we really, really appreciate it. If you want access to all of our content early, ad-free, extended, not extended, but like the full reaction videos, you can go to Patreon, and for $5 you get access to all of our content except a few episodes that we have for the higher tiers called Big Gay Energy After Dark, where we do whatever the hell we want and whatever the hell you want us to do.
Yeah.
It's fun time and it's chaos. So if you love the chaos, that is for you.
It is.
But if you can't, if you're not able to join Patreon, don't worry, we understand. We don't mind. Just come join our Discord where you can still engage with us and with all the other people on Discord who also love queer media. And there's always someone to talk to about whatever you're obsessing about currently, because we all need that person to obsess with. That's why we have this podcast.
Absolutely. We were talking about this book as we were reading it. We will be talking about the show when it comes out, as it's in pre-production. So if you just want to keep up to date on the Thai girl love world, the Discord is a great place to lurk around and figure that stuff out. And also you can meet friends who also really love the same media you do and just, have conversations about it, like Caitlin said. Also, if you just follow us on social media anywhere at Big Gay Energy Pod, you can keep up to date with what we're going to be doing, what our new episodes are. And so that's another way to kind of keep up to date and engage with us if that's what you're into.
So there's so many ways. And if you could just do us a favor right now and share this with at least one person, that would help us greatly. Maybe someone who's excited about Somewhere Somehow and doesn't mind being spoiled if they haven't read the books. Or, just share a channel.
Yeah,
that works too.
That's cool. Yeah. We'd appreciate
any bit of
anything.
support helps us.
Thank you.
All right, let's get back to Somewhere Somehow.
Before we get into college, we have a breaking news update thanks to the Somewhere Somehow Twitter account. So they just literally posted a still that we manifested into existence of young Pock and young Kie. So the actors have been cast. So we will get some kind of flashback with young Pock and young Kie. And now I'm more excited for the series than I was a minute ago.
I'm super, super happy that we will get little them because it's needed. They're not much in the book, but it's definitely very important to their history.
Yes.
To show that. And I like that we get to see it, not just hear it.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I'm excited we'll get some kind of flashback. So you're welcome if you didn't know that. So that just made my day and Caitlin's. Okay, so let's go to college. So in the end, they were all lawfully abiding citizens, and Kie, Pock, and Pheem end up all going to the same college, as was Pinky promised. Well, not Pock, but like if Kie's going, Pock was going, so I feel like that was just a clause in the agreement. And Pheem didn't. Pheem was probably like, I'm sure Pock is part of this. We don't have to say it. It's just, assumed.
So, like, how hard is this school to get into? If,
Right,
like,
if
all
Pock
of
was
them,
there?
because usually everyone gets to the same school, even if they are aiming for it.
Honestly, we never really talk about how intelligent Pock is, or not intelligent, but like academically strong Pock is, but I assume strong enough to be able to also like her and Kie get into the engineering college, and then Pheem goes to the economics school. So Pock must also be really fucking academically smart too to keep up with Kie, which is awesome. But it's never like explicitly addressed, but it's implied if they were both able to get into like the best school or with Pheem.
Yeah, I'm just curious because at least in America, like sometimes even being just good at school is not enough to get into like the top colleges.
Yeah.
Like you need all these extracurriculars and stuff, but I know that has to be different over there because
I don't know the tie requirements to be sure, or what goes into the application. We'll get look into that.
Anyway, as of Kie and Pheem's relationship at this point, Kie describes it as it now bumped up from a saturated liquid state to an ambiguous state.
She's so funny. What a nerd.
It didn't sound like much improvement.
What a nerd.
I love that, like, this is science right now.
Exactly.
And she continues, though we treated one another like we were dating, we did miss some important steps. Mostly on love confession. And I didn't confess. Neither did Pheem. And I love that. Like, they're not at a point where, like, they're denying. Like, he's not denying it. Like, so she does see the reciprocation, but they aren't saying it. They're not oblivious to what is happening right now. So that is a lot of growth.
Yeah. Kie is pretty self-aware, but like also like she spent the senior year or the last day of senior year being like, I'm gonna do it, and then just fails at it because like communicating is not her feelings are not her strong suit. Mm-hmm. Period. And she's learning. But yeah, she's like, well, Pheem didn't do it either. So Pheem wrote, "She's mine" on the back of my shirt, and that's as close as I got. It's basically Kie's point. So yeah, it's more apparent to Kie that Pheem is into her, but she's like, no one has explicitly said that to each other yet. So we're in an ambiguous state, which is really funny. Okay, so then the college starts, and it's like meet the freshman day or whatever. And so they do like icebreaker games with the new students essentially, and they're broken up into groups. And so Pock, Pheem, and Kie are all kind of in the same group for these games. And I'll give you the highlights.
Sorry. What are these games, first of all? Like, I'll let you explain it, but like, what the hell are these games?
They're just like icebreakers, like, I don't know, like team bonding.
Yeah, they really want you to bond. Continue.
But yeah, it's like we're adults now, so there's like sexual implications in a lot of this because they're adults. It's what college kids do, it's pretty universal, I guess. Okay. So first game is, I'm just gonna highlight my favorite one. So one of the games is like basically you have to hold a spoon in your mouth and you have to like pass a ping pong ball, and it's like a relay through like your whole team. Mm-hmm. And so Pheem and Kie are next to each other, so they have to Kie has to pass it to Pheem. And it's just they're such disaster gays, they lose. So basically, they try to like pass it, and then Kie's like, my nose touched Pheem's cheek. And then they drop the ball, and it's just like, and Pock, they try to do it again, and it just gets worse the more they try to do this. And Pock explains it. She's like, Kie, I thought I was looking at a slow motion love scene, watching you two just try to pass a ping pong ball. Like, basically saying your sexual tension is off the charts. You guys need to fucking get your shit together. Is basically what she says. She's like, everybody can see this.
But also, like, meanwhile, everyone else in like behind them is like, come on, let's do it. And like he just keeps dropping the ball every single time.
Because they're too gay to function. They can't do it. They lose. Yes. Then the other game where their gay disasterness pays off is they basically do a Lady and the Tramp game, where essentially they get like a strip of tarot that's like a strip, and then two people have to like bite the ends, and then they have to keep nibbling it until they can't do it anymore, and then whoever has the smallest piece at the end wins. And Pheem and Kie win and basically like touch lips for a second. And whoever is like judging this is like, I'm gonna need a microscope to like measure this thing. Like basically saying like you guys basically ate the whole fucking thing.
This is the main one where I'm like, why is this a school activity? Like, why, like a school sanctioned one?
Because they're adults now, everything. Well, the first game was like songs with sexual innuendos. It's like college. That's why. Because they can. Because it's co-ed now. Like they can. And well, I guess in their other school is co-ed. But anyway, the last one is the least sexual game, which is the food
depending
eating.
on how you look at it. Which actually, because yeah, continue.
It's the food eating contest, and Pock beats everyone before they can even get through the first task. There's like multiple tasks, and Pock beats everybody while everyone's still working on the first task. It's like insane. It's amazing.
I mean, this is what Pock was made for.
Yes. Yes, she is. And
she trained for this since she met Kie.
I know. And it pays off. She wins.
Oh.
So anyway, that was the first day of college. What a whirlwind.
I also want that seat.
Yeah, no, that was really fun. I'm pretty sure we'll at least get the ping pong ball, the tarot eating stuff. So like, because flirting and then being gay disasters, you have to have that. Okay, so then we find out that Pheem makes another deal with her dad. So Kie notices that Pheem's driver doesn't show up to pick her up, and instead Pheem like gets behind the wheel of the car, and she's gonna like take her to their dorm room or something. And Pheem explains like, listen, what happened was since my father forbade me from staying in the dorm. So Pheem tried to stay on campus with like Pock and Kie, and her dad was like, absolutely the fuck not, you're not. She's like, okay, well, if you're gonna force me to stay at home, then at least let me drive myself to and from campus, because it's embarrassing to be chauffeured around. Like, that's weird. So like, but it's Pheem basically making a deal, bargaining to get freedom is like the bottom line. Each time she makes a bargain with her dad, the bottom line of that is Pheem is just trying to get freedom and have some autonomy over her life a little bit. But Kie doesn't know the full context of any of this. She's just like, wow, she's like, I'm really proud of Pheem, because she previously thought Pheem was pretty helpless and like needed people to take care of her. But this whole thing of Pheem like taking charge, learning how to drive, to take care of herself, she was like, wow, Pheem is a really capable person. So like, it's one of those lessons for Kie, like really don't underestimate Pheem. Like she may be like look like this tiny little helpless princess, but like she's actually pretty capable when she puts her mind to something. It's just that like she's in a gilded cage and is forbidden to do a lot of things, but like Kie doesn't fully understand that yet. But when Pheem can break out, like she succeeds because she puts her full heart and soul into whatever she's doing. So yeah, and the bottom line also is just like Pheem at this stage is still keeping all of her family struggles from Kie, but Kie gets a little bit of glimpses little by little into Pheem's struggles at home, but she again doesn't fully put it together yet. All right, then the other thing that's going on when they first start college is there's like freshman hazing at each respective college. And so we focus more on the engineering school hazing, where it's like a military boot camp type of stuff that they have to do. It's like, it's wild. But at the end, once they make it through the hazing, Pock and Kie are awarded gear necklaces. So these necklaces, and then in the end, it's like a gear, like because you know they're engineers, and it's basically like a token of all the hard work and dedication that they did to earn this like token, basically.
I mean, the hazing just seems a little ridiculous.
I mean, it's
because I don't know what college you went to, but like, hey, all right, whatever.
Colleges in America are very different. Like, nobody gives a shit about each other in college. Like, this is more like it's team bonding stuff, is how I view it.
Okay, let's continue.
Okay, so then Kie ends up getting this token, right? The gear necklace. And she ends up giving it to Pheem during her love confession, like finally. So it took them all the way to university for like the love confession to come out. But before she gets ready to do this, Pock tries to help Kie with this because Pock is her wing woman. And this chapter was hilarious. So the first step is they're like, we started by making a love confession flowchart. Like a bunch of nerds. They made a flowchart. Like that's so nerdy. That's where they started. Like they had these big elaborate plans to like just get Kie to tell Pheem she likes her. That's all this was. There was a flowchart. And part of Kie's like plan was she's like, what are you gonna say, Kie? And Kie's like, I'm gonna say this. And Pock's like, that's a movie quote. You can't just steal quotes from movies. And my favorite is when they start arguing over this, and Kie is embarrassed that Pock called her out. And she's like, Pock, is all you do is watch movies? Is that why you know all these quotes? And Pock's like, I watch them with you, Kie. So like calling her out, she's like, you're also watching all these fucking movies. They're so funny. I love them.
I love how like Kie conveniently forgets that like, first of all, they're always together. So if you know something, obviously Pock's gonna know it, and vice versa. Okay? But also, it seems like they watch more movies than like a typical person. So like technically this could work.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
Unless like, Pheem is also there when you're watching this stuff, which I don't know if her father would allow, unless you're watching it at school, but
I think at some point Kie does slip in a movie quote and then Pheem doesn't notice and she's like, haha, I got away with it. Like she does do it because she's a dork. I love her to death. Okay, so then we finally get to the love confession. So basically, despite this big master flowchart that they had going on, the way this goes down is that Pheem shows up at Kie's dorm unannounced because Pock let her in. Because Pock was afraid of Pheem and like let her in to the dorm. And Kie's like, how did you get past security? And she's like, Pock was like, I was afraid of her. So Kie was very much trying to keep Pheem out of her room because she didn't want Pheem to see all the evidence of her Pheem pining that she has in her dorm room. So when she decorated her room, basically she has Piggy on the bed, like the place of honor. And then above the headboard, she has the shirt from the last day of senior year where Pheem wrote like reserved or taken or whatever. It's like hanging above the headboard. And Pheem calls her out. She's like, why is that hanging above your headboard? And Kie very honestly is like, well, I like to see it when I first walk into my room, which is very cute and sweet. And Pheem's like, okay, so she does like me. She's just fucking oblivious. And so, okay, so this whole, they try to talk to each other and like, they struggle to communicate until finally Kie asks Pheem, like, do you want to date me? And Pheem doesn't answer because she gets embarrassed and like has big feelings. So Kie starts telling her how she feels, which is huge. And she starts telling Pheem that she loves her and then shows her the necklace, the gear necklace. And she says, how about this? Like, since you won't answer me, how about you, if you want to date me, you take the necklace. And then if you don't want to date me, I'll never bother you about this ever again. So Pheem obviously takes the necklace and then puts her signature mark on this wholesome moment by saying, if you want this necklace back after this, you're dead. She gets violent at the end, which is so Pheem. I love it.
Yes, but also no takesy backsies.
Basically, she's like, over my dead body, Kie. This is mine forever. Meaning, like,
which
you're never getting rid of me.
You're mine.
Yes, forever. That's exactly what it means. That was a marriage contract, just so you know.
If only they sealed that one with the pinky promise, they would be married.
I think they'd both be fine with that, and that would have avoided some stuff later on. But
yes. Anyway.
All right. While we're in college, we also get the iconic bar that is named Get Wasted for the Dog to Eat Your Puke.
What a name?
Which Kie's thoughts on this name are, the name was quite long, but it clearly communicated its intentions without beating around the bush. Which I fucking love. And they come here quite a bit, like with their college friends. So it must be like near the university or something. And what's really funny about this is that later Pock enacts the name of the bar, like the legend that she is. I love that part. And wins a bottle of liquor, because the owners come out and they're like, wow, it's been years since someone has actually lived up to the name of the bar. Here's a free bottle of liquor, Pock.
Yeah, I love how it's like, we'll make them live up to the name even more by giving them more liquor.
They're like, icon. I know, it's ridiculous, but so funny.
It is a very long name.
It's so funny.
I want to see their marketing. How are you fitting that on everything?
Well, we'll see. We'll see if they actually keep the name of this bar. I hope they do, because it's really funny. Okay, so some important moments happen in this bar. One of the key ones I want to highlight is that Kie and Pheem's first kiss happened because of this bar. So basically they come here with their like college friends or college, gang members, kind of whatever. And Pock is the life of the party with the seniors, and she's like, yeah, let's drink. I'll be the bartender, or like play mixer or whatever. And she gives Pheem the shot, and Pheem drinks it. And I guess it's her first time drinking alcohol or a shot of alcohol, and she does not like it and like gets upset. And so she takes it out on Kie by like pinching her stomach because she doesn't like the way it tastes. And Kie's thoughts go to horny land, where she's like, it was a strangely violent touch, but I want more. Which is so funny. She's like, gay thoughts. She's like, ow, I'm kind of into this.
Pheem will put a pin in that for later.
She will.
One day.
All right, and then at this bar we meet Sai, who becomes one of Pheem's rivals, and like kind of like a main one when we get into college and beyond, basically. And she's the star of the communication arts faculty, so she shows up quite a bit. And at this point, Sai is on stage singing to everybody at the bar. And Kie is pretty entranced by Sai's voice. And one of the guys in their group is like trying to describe her. She's like, oh, she's really pretty. And like her lips. And he's trying to describe her lips and like can't figure it out. So Kie, who's tipsy, says her lips are kissable. That's what you mean, right? Which does not go over well with Pheem.
You know what? Why would that though? Because like, kissable, really? Oh
yeah.
my gosh.
It's okay. It's all right. It works out in the end. But anyway, Pheem is not happy about this. So Pheem starts aggressively drinking after this because she's upset, and then can't drive home. So Kie and Pock take her back to their dorms, where she just like is going to spend the night. So she stays with Kie. And then Pheem, out of jealousy, basically kisses Kie for the first time and tells her never to compliment other women's lips or she'll be punished. And then Kie is like, oh man, how are you gonna punish me? Punish me how? And then like Pheem starts to say something, and Kie's like, finally, Pheem is going to confess. But then Pheem vomits all over her floor. And that's pretty much it for the night. And then Kie ends up taking care of Pheem because her drunk ass can't handle anything else that night. Which definitely happens in the pilot. We see this happen.
Yes.
So this for sure will be in the show.
It makes it to the actual show. So.
It has to. It's their first kiss.
Yeah. No, it will. But see, alcohol, man. Sometimes it can help you confess your feelings. Other times, just gets in the way.
I mean, they wouldn't have gotten to their first kiss this easily without it. So, it's part of the humor, though. Like, of course, it ended ridiculously, right?
It has to.
It has to. Otherwise, this wouldn't be somewhere somehow, would it be? Okay, so this is really funny. So Kie ends up like taking care of Pheem, and Pheem is like a drunk disaster basically the night, and Kie does her best. So then we get the next chapter after this is the next morning. And it's the first Pheem point of view chapter is like after this. And so Pheem wakes up and she's like, where am I? Whose clothes am I in? What is happening? And so Kie is like, I think, doing stuff around the room to like take care of Pheem when Pheem first wakes up. And so we hear from Pheem finally like how she feels about Kie. And in her inner monologue, we learn that like she's super into Kie, which like was obvious, but like she confirms it.
Shit.
And then one thing she notes that I thought was so cute was because like Kie is like doing laundry basically in the room. And she admits that one thing she's really obsessed with is this, quote, look on Kiran's face when she's really doing something and she's determined about it, like when she's focused, which is really cute. She's like, I like her face when she's focused. And so like at that point, like Kie was like cleaning her clothing and she's like, that's so cute how focused she is. And she's just doing laundry, like the way she's so serious and stuff. It's just really adorable. I love that kind of observation. And okay, so then at the end of this, so Key's like basically like, oh, I have to go see my family today. And so Pheem's like, oh, can I come with you? And Key's like, gets embarrassed and is like, are you gonna ask for my hand in marriage today? And she like gets hit by Pheem. She's like, okay, fine. So Pheem tags along and we get to learn about Key's family because we don't, again, the Pocky chapter is at the very end. So we don't really know much about Key's family. So we learn that Key's father is an architect. Her mom is an interior designer. So Pheem's like, wow, this house, like you can tell the house is like perfect because of those two were perfect together for making their own house. And then we have the older brother, Ka, who's, described as being a lot like Kiran. She's like, they could be twins, but they're not. But what's really important is the way Pheem thinks about Key's house. And so her inner monologue, she says, the house gave off a warm vibe with traces of everyone's favorite corners here and there. What a real homey feeling I'd never experienced before. Unlike my house, it was big, but for what? No one was ever there except the maids and the driver. So empty, it was lonely. So what she's noting about Key's house is that it feels lived in it. Like the personalities of the people who live there, she can get it from just the house. Versus her house is this, I'm $10, she lives in the affair house. Okay, $10.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yes, $10. This is the affair house. Because is this not the vibe you're getting? It's this big house.
I was gonna say, like, how much you want to bet it's gonna be the affair
This
house?
has to be the affair
It's
house.
also reminding me of the Us, the series.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what it was like.
Yeah, the cursed house.
But yes, it has to be.
It has to be that house. They have to. If they don't, is there another cursed house in Thailand that people are going to live in? It has to be. Because it's just this big, empty, lifeless...
Yeah.
We have money, but there's no love in that house kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's so sad. So that's the first glimpse of like what Pheem's home life is like. Like her home life is just loneliness, isolation, cold. She doesn't really get not loving. And what's important about that is that from this point, we've only seen Pheem from Key's point of view in interactions with Key, with Pock. And Kie and Pock obviously are just these big goofballs, and they act the same way around Kie. So it's like they bring vibrancy and life to Pheem's existence that she doesn't have when she goes home. And like, so it makes sense why Pheem is like hanging around to spend more time with Kie and also Pock, because when she goes home, it's just lifeless. So it's really sad what Pheem's life is like without Kie and Pock too, by extension. It's just sad.
So basically, everyone just needs to move in with Kie in Key's house and just be one big happy family, eating a lot of food from that Key's mom makes.
Basically, that would solve everything.
That's what needs to happen.
That's what needed to happen. Idol Factory, get on it. But then there'd be no drama scenes, so they're not going to do that. All right. So after Pheem meets her future in-laws, we then have Pheem's birthday that happens. And so we're going to end up at the Isle of Lesbos, everybody. We're going to Hua Hin for Pheem's birthday.
Woo! Hydrate for lesbian Jesus!
Woo! All right, and to her birthday, Pheem invites Kie and Pock, which is really sweet. But Pock goes as Key's maid, which I love in the description. She's like the girlfriend. And her maid, who's Pock. Okay, but on this trip, we meet Pheem's family. So first we meet her older sister, whom I don't know how to pronounce this name. The way it's translated is Prae. So pray, I think. If that's wrong, I'm sorry.
I think that's what we determined from the Girl Rules pilot, I believe.
Pray?
Like, that's what we assumed. Yeah, pray.
Oh, okay. Girl Rules.
I'm pretty sure it was in Girl Rules. Isn't that,
Oh, was it one of the other girls' names? I forget.
Because you keep calling her Bambi. I'm pretty sure it's Bambi's name.
Her name's no. Prim and no, Bambi was an
Oh.
actual name. That's Film's
Oh.
character is Bambi.
Oh, okay. Never mind then.
Okay. Anyway, I think that's how you say it. And then her son, who is Pheem's nephew, his name is Puck. So he's a little kid, I think. And so in the first half of the trip, it's older sister, nephew, and then Pheem's friends. And so the first half of this trip is super fun and super happy. And Kie learns that Pheem's sister knows exactly who she is. She's like, it's nice to meet you. And the sister's like, yeah, I know who you are. It'd be really weird if I didn't. And Kie's like, what are you talking about? I've never met you before. And the sister basically outs Pheem and is like, well, Pheem has photos of you all over her room. So it would be really, I'd have dementia if I didn't know who you were. And so again, this is the point where like Pheem has not confessed her love to Kie. We've only heard it in Pheem's head. So Kie's elated because she's like, this is as close to a love confession as she's gotten to this point. But she's like, honestly, this is even better because she's like, it's proof that Pheem has liked me for the last 5 years. And that's really meaningful to Kie because it's actions, not words. So she's like, oh, yay.
And it's not like just a few photos like in frames like around the room. We find out, at least in like the special chapter, that it's a bunch of photos of Kie in various postures on her wall. And like this just really brought me back to Mon and Gab.
Yes!
But the difference being that she actually knew her the whole time. Like these photos were like experiences rather than, stalking.
These weren't like taken with a wide lens from the bushes like Mon's. They weren't stalker photos. They were actual photos of Kie, the person she knew. But yeah, I got the same vibe. She had a stalker wall, but not stalking. An admirer wall.
Yeah.
So funny. This has to be in the show.
Yeah, it has to.
It has to. So it'll be like, if it is the affair house, this will be the liveliest part of the affair house, is like the Kie shrine on the wall. God, that house is so creepy. Anyway, so then we have some beach-themed jealousy, just like the loyal pin, so Monmaw's on brand. And it's the same thing, which it's women in bikinis. But the way this was written was fucking hilarious. So remember in the loyal pin when they go to Hua Hin, and basically there's women in like 1960s bathing suits, which were so scandalous at the time. And remember Pin gets jealous and she's like, what color was the ocean? White, like the bikinis, like, or their skin and all that stuff. And I don't think this made it into the show, but in the book it was hilarious when Pin gets really jealous of Nin looking at women in bikinis. We get the same thing here. But it's so the way this was written though was fucking hilarious. It's very fan fiction-y and just amazing. So I'm just gonna give you context and then give you what Monmaw wrote because it's so fucking funny. So basically, on the trip, aside from Pock and Kie, Pheem brought 2 of her like female friends named Fawn and Luckham. And they are in bikinis, okay? This set the stage. Unlike Pock. So Pock is in like full-on scuba gear and like with a snorkel and like all this stuff. She's like, I'm ready to party. And then I think the guys that are with them, I think Ka comes, her Kie's brother, and like one of his friends whom they know from school.
Yeah.
And they're basically like, Pock, I'd like to see you wear what they're wearing, which is like skimpy ass bikinis, right? So like Kie's there just like taking all this in. And so like she looks at the other 2 women to be like, compare them to Pock, basically. And here's what Monmaw writes. Fawn and Luckham in brightly colored bikinis, showing off their long, nice legs. Like, Kie, girl. Their tiny bikinis seemed a bit too tiny for their breasts. And then there was darkness, ... darkness, ... I couldn't see anything. How could I when Pheem's arm was around me, her hands obscuring my eyes? I just love the way darkness, and then it trails off. Because Pheem's just like got her in a stranglehold.
The way it's written really makes you see it.
It's so funny.
Because you can just tell what's happening.
It's very fan fiction-y the way she wrote this. Where it just like trails off and she's like, nothing. And then Pheem gets really fucking jealous and it keeps going. But like the way she described that transition was so vivid and hilarious from Kie's point of view. I just love it so much.
Now that you bring up fan fiction, though, there is like a couple parts, especially in the beginning, where it reminded me of people who write fan fiction and then like tie it to songs. Like there's always like the lyrics in there with the ringtones.
Yes.
They do that a lot.
She does do
Then
that.
there's, I believe there was some lyrics too, just in general to describe like what's going on.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I've seen this before.
Yeah, it reads like a fan fiction sometimes, which I really love. It just makes it super fun and engaging. And again, Monmaw does a good thing where when she has a point of view character, you stick with the point of view character, and it feels like you're seeing things through their eyes, which I really like. This, it just reads like she's like, and also nothing. Like, as you getting strangled by Pheem, and just I love the way she wrote it. So good. All right, so that's the daytime, is beach themed jealousy. And then we get to dinner, and it's like this big, like, seafood bash of all this food. And so Pheem is like, pretends that her arms aren't working so that Kie will peel the shrimp and the crab for her and like feed it to her. She's like, well, my arms don't work. You gotta feed it to me. So then Kie spends the whole evening, like, she's like, it's your birthday. And she keeps like hand feeding it, like the popcorn scene, but with shrimp, basically. And then at one point, Kie looks over and Pock is sitting there with her mouth open, like, and Kie's like, Pock, why are you opening your mouth? And Pock's like, your wife needs you to feed her too. My hands are paralyzed. So she's trying to do what Kie did, or Pheem did, to be like, feed me too, husband. And then like Kie does do it, but like instead of like hand feeding her, she like picks it up with like a skewer or a fork or something. And she's like poking the inside of Pock's mouth at some point, and she's like, be gentle. And Kie's like, being a lord is hard. Kie's so fucking funny. I swear. I need that scene too. That just seems
I need that one.
Hilarious.
I need the scene like where it really does seem like Kie has two wives.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
Has to treat them both like equals.
And just yes, I need that. And just why I love Kie's inner monologue, because she goes along with the two wives thing, and she's like, man, being a husband's hard. Like multiple wives. It's so fucking funny. But yeah, I would love that, because like the contrast would be this like sweet, cute, flirting thing, and then Pock. I want that so badly.
Meanwhile, she's just like, as long as I get food, I don't care.
Pock is a simple woman. Okay, so unfortunately, all the gaiety ends when Pheem's dad shows up really late and not alone, unfortunately. So, like, before we get to him actually showing up, like, Pheem asks about her dad to her older sister quite a few times. And it's really clear that she's, like, upset that he's not there. Because I think she just genuinely wants to be loved by her family, and her dad is like pretty withholding of affection, and it's always like conditional and stuff like that. But still, like, she's a girl who wants love, and I think their mother died or passed away when they were younger, so it's just been the dad raising them. And so all night, Pheem's sister keeps making all these excuses. She's like, well, he's busy at work, and he'll be here later, and he's busy at work, and I feel like that was their childhood. I get that glimpse that like Pheem was constantly, and even her sister were constantly disappointed by their dad, who puts more time and effort into his business than his family. And I think that the role was big sister had to comfort little sister, and that happened by just like making excuses for the dad.
Yeah. I think it's probably why Pheem is really clingy and jealous.
Yeah.
Because in Kie's inner monologue, she does say, like, the little miss lost her mother since she was young. She'd expected love from her father, but she was often let down. Her father was the president of a top company, devoting everything to his work. So there's nothing left for her. And in Pheem's point of view, I believe it's a special chapter, she says that every birthday he promised to be there, but he was always at work instead. So,
yeah,
like, she didn't even have the person who is supposed to be there and love you unconditionally do what they're supposed to do. So, like, it's going to make her question other people, like, if they're actually going to stick around and be scared of them abandoning her.
Yes.
So, like, no wonder she, like, literally clings, and there is a scene that I have written later, too, where she's clinging to Kie, like a kangaroo, and Kie has this whole funny thing about that, and we'll get into it later. But
you
I
mean the
love it.
monkey scene later?
Yeah, the
Oh my
monkey,
God.
not
Yeah, we'll get
kangaroo.
into that.
Sorry.
That was so fucking funny. I don't know if they'll put that in the show because it seems hazardous, but like, this was hilarious. The whole thing. Anyway. But yeah, I agree. Pheem has abandonment issues. That's a really good way to put it. Because her, she has her dad, but like, does she? He's never around. And anytime he wants to show her love, he expects something in return. So later, we'll get her insights into how she views Kie's love, where like the way Kie loves her is very unconditional. Where Kie, like in the beginning, when they made the deal to walk home together, Kie would do things like arrange her schedule so that she was there for Pheem. And Pheem notices all these things where she's like, Kie would just do that. I didn't tell her to. I didn't tell her to like hold umbrellas for me. I didn't tell her to like do all these things. But like Kie showed me she loved me in these little ways and she did them all the time, like without being asked. Whereas her dad, he's like, you want this from me? You need to do this in return. Like he never did that. It was always unconditional. And that was such a rarity in Pheem's life. And I think Pheem recognized that. And like, to your point, that is why she clings so much to Kie. It's because Kie's love for her is unconditional. And so she's terrified of losing it because she's never had it. The way Pock was like, wow, I've never had a mother's love before, you know? It's really sad. Like there's these little kids who are kind of orphaned a little bit and just want love and just are denied it or don't get enough from their primary caregiver that they're desperate once they get the love, you know, in certain ways. It's a way to read it. But
this is why I think Pock and Pheem understand each other so much.
I agree. I think that's why they become they bond, like you said. I think they have a lot in common. And like, you know, Kie's the lighthouse for them. She's like, she gives Pock unconditional love in like their own way. Like they love each other unconditionally. It's just, you know, this silly goofball platonic love, which is great. But with Pheem's family, like even with her dad, it's like, yeah, it's not a healthy relationship, but there's obviously love there in that family. It's just really complicated and warped, which we're snakes, not eyes.
Yes, by the controlling.
Yeah, we're snakes, not eyes. Who pointed out the C plot? It's always families don't communicate. Well, here you go. There's the C plot of families that don't communicate. Pheem's family. All right, so then he shows up and we get to meet her dad. And when he arrives, Kie notices that Pheem looks flustered. She's like, oh, this is the first time I've ever seen her flustered, and she's shaking. So she seems afraid of her dad, which also not good. And then he brings this 25-year-old dude named Pun, who becomes Kie's rival for the rest of the story. Unfortunately.
Yeah, very unfortunately.
So unfortunate. Are they gonna cast the guy that played Herpes in Loyal Pen? He'd be perfect. He's got a punchable face.
I forget what character Kirk is.
He's in it, but I don't think he's playing Pun. I don't remember who he's playing. He's actually playing a guy whose name is not in the novel. So I don't know who he's going to be. I assume he's going to be an amalgamation of a couple of characters. But Pock... That
would make sense. There's quite a few.
In the pilot, Pock was into him, so I don't think he's going to be Pun. I think he's going to be one of the college friends or Pheem's brother or Kie's brother. I'm not sure. I guess we'll find out. If you know, leave it in the comments.
We will find out.
Yeah, but Pock is going to be into him, so there's that. All right, so then after this whole ordeal with the dad and Pun, Pheem's possessiveness of Kie escalates. So she starts like texting Kie nonstop. Like Kie will be studying with Pock and Pheem will text her like 84 times in like 3 minutes. And if Kie doesn't answer in exactly 35 seconds, she gets another text. And she'll text her things like, did you just disappear? Are you really with Pock? Like, it's things like that. And it seems toxic on the surface, but I think this is a trauma response from Pheem. Because after the Hua Hin thing, Kie doesn't... We go back to Kie's point of view, and Kie doesn't see Pheem for a few days after Hua Hin. And that's because we find out later that Pheem's father takes her and is trying to bargain with her again to go study in England and not Thailand for college. But Pheem refuses this again, and she's like, listen, the deal was I got to stay here in Thailand. And part of the deal also, which she didn't tell Kie, was that she had to marry Pun, basically, and get engaged to him as part of the deal. So that is coming to fruition right now. And that's partially why she was away, because the dad was arranging the engagement and stuff. And that's why he brought him back. He's like, you got to live up to your bargain. And I think she's trying, I think he gets the vibe that she does not like him. And so he's like, well, here he is. You sure you want to do this? Are you sure you're really that into this idea of staying in Thailand? You can go to England and be free of this man. And Pheem is like, no, I'm staying in Thailand, because she doesn't want to be away from Kie.
Yeah, and when she's dealing with this, I believe this is in the timeline, Kie's the one who can't reach Pheem.
Yes.
And she says, like, she calls her like 5 times, texts 6 times, but she wouldn't do anything else because she didn't want to risk annoying someone. Like, she's not the type of person to do what Pheem does every 35 seconds, text you if you don't respond. And I just found that interesting that she was so worried about annoying people, because it's like her thing that she's insecure about. Like, she doesn't want to annoy anyone. But also there's a funny exchange with her and Pock that comes from this that I just really need to make sure that we talk about, because
so good.
I love it. And I really laughed at this one. Like, I had to put the phone down and just digest it. So she tells Pock that she sent a email to Pheem.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And Pock's like, well, what did you say? And he goes, hello. And then I guess she just pauses there, and Pock's like, you just emailed her to say hello? Like, that's it? She's like, no, I just didn't get to finish. You cut me off. But anyway, part of the email she reads, and she ends the email with, if you read this email, and trails off. And Pock's like, and? Kie continues, forward it to 7 people and you'll find happiness and prosperity. But if you don't, you may have diarrhea. And the result of this is bang! It wasn't Pock's hand, but her big head against mine.
She headbutts Kie.
She turns it into a freaking chain
like
mail.
A chain email. Because basically, like, in the email, Kie, like, was, like, being vulnerable and was like, I'm worried about you and stuff. And so when she's uncomfortable and embarrassed, be funny. So that's what she's doing. But so funny.
And I don't remember if she actually sent that. I think she might have made that up while she was reading it to Pock. But I love that, like, so out of everything, we turn this into a
chain email. I know. She's ridiculous. These two are so funny. I can't with them. Oh my god.
It's like, I forgot that was a thing.
Right, until Kie brought this up.
Really?
Like, girl, don't bring this back.
Oh my god. It was hilarious.
So, back to Pheem's actually, wait, before we get back to Pheem's possessiveness, there's one funny thing, which I can't remember if it happens here or later, but when it comes to, like, Pheem nonstop texting Kie and Kie not answering, at one point, Pock feels bad for Pheem, and so takes the phone away from Kie. I don't know if you wrote this later. I can't remember if it's here or later, but I'm just talking about it here. She takes Kie's phone away from her, and then texts Pheem, and she's basically like, I miss you so much. Everything's fine. I'm really with Pock. Love you, or something like that. And then Pheem replies back. She's like, I know this is Pock. Give Kie back her phone. And then because Pock gets scared and, like, throws the phone. And Kie's like, what the fuck, Pock? And then she reads it, and Pheem's like, I know that's Pock. Not Kie. Give her the phone back.
Yeah, the whole time Pock's texting, Kie is, like, trying to get the phone back, but Pock is, like, dodging everything.
Because Pock is like,
I love that she immediately gets scared when Pheem's like, I know it's you.
Yeah, because, like, Pock's like, I feel bad for Pheem, you're leaving her unread. But Pheem knows that is normal. And then Pock responds, she's like, this isn't Kie. Give her the fucking phone back before I kill you. She's like, ah! I can't wait. I hope that's in there too. So funny. Okay, anyway, so back to Pheem being overly possessive now. So now that the marriage with Pun is getting real and it's not just a theoretical thing, Pheem is, as a trauma response, is clinging to Kie even harder because she's terrified of losing Kie because Kie's the only bright spot in her life. And like Kie and having Kie's love is the thing she's doing this all for. So she's more afraid of losing her than she was when she was basically in summer school and was physically away from her. Basically. So that's why she's being more clingy, but Kie doesn't understand that context quite yet. So Kie just rolls with it. She's like, I guess. Okay, and then things start kind of escalating between Pheem and her father, and basically at one point during school, Kie gets sick, and she's basically out of class for like 2 days, and she's like bedridden, she's really sick, and Pheem gets so worried that she defies her father for 2 whole days and stays with Kie to take care of her. And this whole thing is really cute and sweet, and we have some stills of like Pheem in like a nurse's hat, so I think that like this will definitely be in there. And one of the cutest parts that I love is when Kie wakes up the next morning and Pheem sleeps with a mask on so she doesn't get sick, which is really cute. And she puts like Piggy in between them. And in the pilot, there's a scene of like Pheem sleeping with a mask on. So I'm pretty sure they will do all of this stuff. And it's just very, very, it's super cute. I thought this was adorable. Because a lot of this is like Kie taking care of Pheem, so it's cute to see it the other way.
Yeah. Always showing that the relationship is reciprocal. It's not one-sided.
Yeah, exactly. But the bad part about this is because Pheem's gone for 2 days, I think she turns her phone off or something, that her father gets real suspicious that Kie is the person that Pheem is in love with and is defying him for. So this is like the nail in the coffin for like Kie, basically. So Pheem's father, in retaliation, takes her phone away from her, and Kie doesn't know the context of any of this. She just suddenly cannot get a hold of Pheem. So she freaks the fuck out. But Pock, being like the Pheem whisperer, like figures out what happens because she's got supernatural abilities, I guess. And she's like, well, I think, and I think he's like, well, I think maybe her dad knows and doesn't like me. And I love that Pock is trying to be all comforting. She's like, it's okay, bro. Most father-in-laws despise the son-in-laws. If not today, you'll encounter it another day if you're serious about Pheem. Meaning, like, if she's gonna hate you one day or another, like, because you're gonna come out as her significant other. And Kie's like, that's true, Pock. I love this exchange, too. It's so funny. And so real.
Accepting her fate.
I know. It's hilarious. So Kie eventually manages to get a hold of Pheem because Pheem takes one of her friend's phones and like texts Kie to be like, I'm alive. It's okay. And Pheem basically tells her like, look, I'm having family issues right now. So I'm gonna have to ghost you for a bit, but everything's gonna go back to normal in 2 to 3 days. Just trust me on this and like, please just wait for me patiently. But Kie does not do that. Instead, she's like, takes Pock and she's like, I just want to see her. Let's go over to the economics building and just to see her to make sure she's okay. And unfortunately, Kie does this and finds Pheem with Pun. And Pun is like, has his hand on her elbow and he's doing like, she's my girlfriend kind of shit. And that breaks Kie's heart.
So understandably.
Understandably. So then she basically ghosts Pheem, okay, after this. Because Kie's having big feelings. She's not ready to talk about them. She has to process them. Doesn't know how to communicate that. So she just like ghosts Pheem. That's kind of like her pattern of behavior. She's like, I need to be alone, figure out my feelings before I say things I'll regret, basically. So she ghosts Pheem. And Pock ropes Kie into some school project with the communication arts department where they go to Summit with these other students. So a student named Beer, Pie, and Sai, of course, like Pheem's rival. And they all kind of go.
Yeah. Of course.
Naturally.
Sai has to be there.
Duh. Drama scenes.
Yeah, and Pheem keeps calling Kie, so Kie eventually turns the phone off because, it's a lot easier than having to hit ignore or, listen to this phone. I mean, if you have the sound on, because, like, why do people have sound on?
I don't know. Listen, yeah. Why is that not on
we said this multiple times. And I love that Pock knows Pheem so well that as soon as Kie turns her phone off, she just starts counting down from 5, and as soon as she finishes counting down, her phone rings. It's amazing.
It's so fucking funny.
Because, like, Kie, what did you expect was gonna happen? Like, someone's phone's gonna keep ringing.
She's the Pheem whisperer. Pock knows her better than like Kie does sometimes. So again, yeah, Pock has a lot of sympathy for Pheem, and she understands Kie, and she's like, understands it's not that Kie doesn't care, it's just Kie has to process her feelings, kind of thing. But she's like, it's not fair to Pheem because you're not communicating with Pheem, so she's in the dark. So like, Pock is kind of like the benevolent middleman. So what Pock does is she basically conspires with Pheem and arranges so Pheem can come to Samet and surprise Kie because she's like, these bitches need to talk and just fuck basically. So like, she's like, she gets Pheem here and like, they get like, she gets like a hotel room for the two of them for like 2 nights. And Kie is not happy about this when she finds out. And Pock literally drags Kie to the fancy hotel. And while Pheem trails along and like leaves her with Kie, or with Pheem. And is like, I'll see you in a few days. But Kie, now that she's alone with Pheem, is like, is still not ready to like talk to Pheem about this, and so she tries to walk away. So Pheem chases after Kie and literally trips over a dog, and like sprains her ankle, basically. So then, now that she's a hurt little puppy dog, Kie softens and tries to carry Pheem to the room. She's like, "Crap, you're injured. Let me like take you upstairs and like ice your leg." And Peem's like, she's like, "I'll give you a piggyback ride." And Peem's like, "Okay, great, but I want to sightsee." So like, Kie ends up having, I need the scenes from this, where Kie has to take Pheem on her back and literally takes her around this town. And Peem's like, "I want ice cream. I want this. I want that." Like, like the whole time. Like until like sunset. Like she's like carrying her around. It's so fucking funny.
Yeah. Until they get like back to the hotel, and like he describes this in the monologue as a monkey hanging on its mother.
Yes.
And then like this continues, and Kie goes to get ice later. And Peem's like, "Wait, I'm coming with you."
This was so hilarious.
And then Kie thinks, "Oh my, the struggles of a mother monkey."
That was so funny, that line.
Love this. There's such great lines in these monologues,
So
which
fucking funny.
in the pilot, we do see like voiceovers of Kie's thoughts. So I'm wondering if we are gonna like not this like most of the stories you're losing all the inner thoughts. I'm wondering if they are gonna keep that in this, because I think it'll actually enhance the show because so much of the humor is in the inner monologues.
Yeah, either that or she's gonna have to be like, say it out loud and like mutter on her breath, and then Peem's like, "What did you say?" And like they're gonna have to do stuff like that. But yeah, I will be sad losing Kie's inner monologue because it is so fucking funny. But yeah, no, the scene is like, I don't know that we'll get this in the show because it sounds dangerous. So like basically like Pheem is still piggyback riding on Kie, and Kie's like trying to get ice out of the freezer, and she's like, "I had to bend down and I almost killed Pheem because she's falling off of me." And she's like, "This took way longer than it needed to because Pheem insisted on riding on my back while I tried to get her ice." And then eventually she succeeds and gets ice, and then like sits down on the bed and is trying to ice Peem's leg. And she's like, "Wow, your leg is super swollen." And she thinks this to herself, and she's like, "It probably would have been better if you just iced this immediately instead of me like escorting you all over fucking this island, but whatever." So she's like icing her leg while Pheem is still, because Pheem is freaking out. She won't let go of Kie, like literally. So they now at this point, they finally talk things through. And Kie is a lot like in a better place to talk about this because she understands by Pheem coming here, she chose her and not Pun. So that like what she saw, like obviously she didn't choose that guy, she's choosing her. And so Kie understands that. And so like it helps cool off the rage basically. And then I love what their conversation here because Kie and Pheem actually talk about not just their feelings, but Kie explains like her emotional processing capabilities, basically. And she explains why she ghosted her. And she's like, "Listen, I walked away because I'm not good with words. And especially when my emotions are all over the place, it's hard to control what comes out of my mouth. Most of the time, those words are just fleeting emotions. They're not really how I feel." So like Kie's a little hot-headed sometimes and just says stuff like and go back to the very beginning where she was like, didn't know how to explain to the candy gang at school who were like, ooh, are you dating Pheem? Are you dating Pheem? And she didn't know how to be like, don't say things like that. We didn't talk about this. So instead she's just like, we're not fucking dating. Like, shut the fuck up. And that pissed off Pheem. So she's kind of like somewhat apologizing for that here too. And then, but Pheem, or the Kie explains to Pheem, she was like, hey, remember that one time where I told you I didn't want to walk home with you ever again? That's why I said that, because I was just like saying what I was feeling and I didn't really mean it. So I appreciate the honesty of this conversation because it's like drama that hinges on miscommunication can be frustrating because it is. But I appreciate Kie, who is still a teenager at this point. Like she's like 19 going on 20 and is explaining why she struggles with communicating. And I love that about them and this conversation. And at the end, she tells Pheem she's trying to work on this and be better so that she can communicate with Pheem and so that she can be better for her, basically. And then she's like, I know I'm bad at this. I suck at this, but I'm trying to be better. And of course, Pheem at the end is like, don't say bad things about my girlfriend ever again. Like, I love that.
How dare you?
How dare
say
you?
Bad things.
Which is so funny. But I hope we get this conversation because I think it's important. And it does show that despite this like hot-headedness thing that's going on with the two of them, like like Kie is like, I'm genuinely trying to get better at this. I recognize this is something I'm bad at. I'm trying to be better. And I do like that. I think that's a really good thing. Cuz like nobody has to be nobody is perfect. No relationship is perfect. But it's the fact that she's trying and and she's getting better at it. You can see her getting better as the story goes on, you know.
Yeah, I just also from the storytelling tone aspect of it, I love that there are these moments where they are real because it just shows like even the people who are playing around all the time, like there are moments where you have to be real and not messing around the whole time because you have to. That's the only way you're going to actually understand each other because if you're just joking around, who knows what you actually mean.
Yeah, and it's like that's Kie again, that's Kie's defense mechanism. So here there's no humor because she is being vulnerable in this scene, like and is admitting I'm bad at it, but I'm trying to be better at it. Cuz like nobody likes doing that. Like, you know, it's hard.
No. That's why therapy exists.
Right. Okay, so during this time in Samet, Pheem and Kie have sex for the first of many times in just a short span of 2 days. And the reason we get here is because Pock prayed to the sea ogre statue that if Kie succeeded in seducing Pheem, she would, quote, dance to Beyonce as an offering to her. And I also
first
need
of
this
all,
fucking scene.
I know, no, that this is what I literally texted Theor. I need this scene.
Yes.
First of all, the fact that they mentioned Beyonce in here.
Of that.
I don't know what they're gonna do for
Right.
this actual scene because they have to have it in. They this is such a big plot point. They have to have this in there.
I would hope so.
I can't wait. Look, them, you're gonna kill it. Anyway, but I don't even know where I was going. I just love this.
That's so fucking funny.
This part. So this is what
So
sticks
funny.
with my brain the most out of this entire book is this part.
It's so funny. But like we don't get this from Pock's point of view. We get it from Kie a little bit and then Pheem. And everybody basically was scarred for life while she was doing this because she was so into it. And there's like one part where there's like a kid screaming. He's like, Mom, I'm scared. I need this to happen. It's just gonna be so fucking funny.
Yes, I definitely want like the child saying, Mom, I'm scared.
Mom, I'm scared. Like Pock is like hardcore dancing. I think she danced to Crazy in Love, but like there's no way they're gonna get the rights to a Beyonce song. But anyway, it would be so iconic if they did.
Like in the book, he was like, I'm trying to decide if I want Crazy in Love or Love on Top. And like honestly, if they could do a mashup, I feel like that would be epic.
That would be
epic. If Glee still existed, they would, and if someone on the team like saw this, they would definitely take it.
Yes, of course they would.
Run with it.
Anyway.
I'm curious what they're gonna do in general with like the pop culture references, like any songs. Like will they could make like do original songs and just pretend like it's popular in this, but it just doesn't have the same effect.
I mean that would make sense. From like
it would make sense for the show point and like legally. But yeah, there's a lot of pop culture in there.
Yeah,
I enjoyed
that's a
it.
good question. What they will do or what they can and cannot do based on like copyright and things like that.
Legally, yeah.
Like legally, what they can and cannot do. Yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll see. Yeah, doing OSTs would make sense. And like be like, oh yeah, that's a famous person or something, or it's like them. That would be funny though. How meta.
That'd be hilarious.
But okay, so then when we do get to their like first time scene, something that I like about it is that when things get kind of serious, basically Peem says she's afraid. And Kie is like, "Oh shit, should I stop? Like let's stop." And then she's like, "Well, why?" And Peem explains that she's afraid Kie will leave her once Kie gets what she wants, which is so fucking sad because, again, this is the trauma response from Peem's father that love is always conditional. And like I mentioned earlier with Kie, it hasn't been like that. Like, again, Kie does all these little things for Peem. Like, she's always carrying her books and walking her home, and Kie does them without being asked. There's no deal, there's no conditions. But in this moment, Peem is at her most vulnerable state and she's voicing her deepest fear out loud that Kie is the same as everybody else in her life. She's like, I'm worried that you're gonna show me you're just like everybody else, and everything I think about you is a Disney fairy tale and it's not real. And Kie's like, oh, that's what you're afraid about? I'm never gonna leave you, don't worry. And like, yeah. But it's really
But
sad
even
from
like
Peem's point of
with
view.
her saying that, like
Yeah.
it's hard when that's what you know growing up.
Yeah. It's so sad.
It's like it's hard to trust anybody.
Yeah.
It's like who knows what will happen.
Yeah. I know. And it's like, and it's also like, this is one of those things, like, you cross this line, like, their relationship will never be the same again. And so, like Peem can't take it back, that kind of thing. So she's, like, really scared. But that goes over well. And yeah, they basically make the most of their time here together. My favorite one is the next morning, and then we switch to Peem's point of view, and she thinks Key's fine. She's like, Kie finally fucking fell asleep. She kept me up all night. I'm like her new favorite toy. And then she's like, I'm gonna go take a shower now that Key's asleep. And she gets into the shower, and suddenly Key's there. She's like, I thought you were asleep. And she's like, nope, let's shower together. And so they get in the shower, and this is my favorite part. And obviously they don't just shower because of Kie. And so Peem's inner monologue is my favorite part. She's like, that was such a struggle of a shower. My assistant was not helpful. I love that description. My assistant.
That is
It's so
hilarious.
fucking funny.
And then like at breakfast, I believe Kie, was it Kie or Pete? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting.
It's just the
But
eggs.
I think, yeah, the eggs. Like you got to keep up your
Strength or whatever.
strength.
Peem gives
And then,
Kie
like,
eggs, I think is what it is.
and well, then I guess like Kie is like, maybe I should give them to you instead, because like basically turning it back on her. It reminded me of the blank scene when Little Nung is trying to flirt with Big Nung in the car, and like Big Nung turns it back on her, and then she can't handle it.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because then it was like Kie gets flustered after that.
So fucking funny. Yeah, suddenly
Nice.
Kie gets big and bold with her flirting, but like Peem can still make her flustered, which is hilarious, like you're saying. Okay, so then yeah, now we're at breakfast while they're doing that. And of course, they run into Sai. So Sai's walking by and she's like, oh, Kie, here you are. Because you're supposed to be on this trip with us, like doing stuff. They're like, I don't know what they're doing, a music video or something where like Kie's making props.
I think it's a music video.
I guess Sai is singing and all this kind of stuff. She's like, you just disappeared. She's like, who's this? And Kie's like, oh, this is my girlfriend, Peem. And immediately, without, just says that. And then Kie is like oblivious to all the subtext that then happens between Sai and Peem, because Peem is death glaring at Sai. She's like, who the fuck are you? And also she clocks that Sai looks disappointed when like Kie calls Peem her girlfriend. And so Peem does not let that go, ever.
No, and I'm pretty sure it's Sai's point of view. So like we get more revealed about like Sai's character when we get her point of view. And so like she explains that she did her signature smile at Kie, and she's the first person to ever reject her smile, and that Kie went from someone she remembered to someone she focused on. And I was like, this feels like she's more after the chase with the way she's talking here. Like, she's not actually interested in Kie. She's interested in this person who rejected her, because it was like the first time it ever happened.
Yeah, so like I can see that in this chapter where we get Sai's point of view. Like basically Sai goes through like first meeting Kie to like this breakfast to like a bunch of stuff with Kie. And one of the things that she says is that, you know how Kie mentions, oh, my defense mechanism is making jokes. Sai mentions that her defense mechanism is smiling sweetly. And she's like, when I'm uncomfortable, I just smile and it shuts things down. So like she was doing that with Kie, and Kie like saw through the defense mechanism and was like, whatever, and was not fooled by it. So I think that's why she's like, oh, the one person that like got through my defense mechanism. I think that's the thing. She's like, I'm intrigued by you. Why did you do it? Nobody else. I think that's what it is.
Okay. I mean, there is definitely more to Sai. We only get a little bit because, like, that's not a main character
Not at all
in this.
Just
there to be a rival.
I like the context though, because you're like, okay, Sai is not just this like person who's trying to piss off Pheem. Like she's like a full person with her own stuff going on, you know.
It is good to know like more about who these people are. They're not just plot devices.
Exactly. So I like that. Like the Candy Gang people were more plot devices, and Sai is like an actual person.
Because we don't know anything about them.
No, we just know that flirting with Kie, and Pheem's like, get away from her.
But while I'm talking about Sai's point of view real quick, there's just like a few points that I have, and the first thing, I have to bring this up. So Sai asks Kie for help making a slideshow. And Kie shows her how to use After Effects for some reason. And like immediately I'm like, what? Because Sai makes a comment, I didn't write it down, but Sai's like, oh, this is really complicated. How did you learn this? I'm like, yes, it is complicated because you shouldn't be using After Effects to make this damn slideshow. What are you putting in this thing that you need to use After Effects? Because really, they should have just used Premiere if they're going to go with the Adobe suite. Okay? Because Premiere, you just put the things together in the timeline and you put transitions in it. It's fine, okay? After Effects is for like graphic heavy, one shot, you need to mask and like do visual effects and things. Like, that's not a slideshow. So why? And I don't know. He's like, I learned on YouTube for something in high school. I'm like, so you learned on YouTube, but they didn't tell you that you should have just used Premiere for a slideshow?
Watch the wrong YouTube video. Make a YouTube video and explain this for all the Kies out there, Caitlin.
But also, everyone listening, just use DaVinci Resolve, okay? That one's free. And you won't have to pay Adobe's ridiculously increasing prices. They just increased it. I'm kind of pissed, can you tell? And also, like, DaVinci is starting to be used by big productions now. So it's great. It's great. It's free, or there's a full version where you only pay one time under $300 for this thing, and you get it upgraded each year when they upgrade the thing, like for free. So it makes no sense to go with Adobe, honestly. Sorry, Theora. I had Theora learn on DaVinci first, and then I switched her over to Premiere because that's just what I was using. I don't know why we did that, really.
Here we are.
But anyway, that was my rant. Can you tell Monmaw hit a nerve?
She did. How dare you?
I was just more happy that I was like, oh, After Effects, I know that. And then as I thought about it, I was like, wait, why? Why are we using After Effects?
Well, I mean, the other question is that's relevant that Kie brings up. She's like, aren't you the one in the communication to art department? Shouldn't you know all about this? Why are you making me, an engineering person, do this? Because Sai's just trying to flirt with Kie.
Yeah, and it's like no one else in the communication arts department could help you. And Sai's like, I don't trust any of them.
Right, she's just trying to flirt with Kie.
Okay, yeah.
But maybe that's Monmaw's way of saying Kie, obviously, this is not her expertise, but she figured something challenging out and made it work. because she's Kie.
Yeah, she can figure out anything that she puts her mind to. She
Exactly.
is Theora.
I don't know about that, but anyway.
You learn things really quickly. Anyway, there's also a great Pock moment in this chapter where Sai witnesses Pock kick Pun, I believe it is, because it puns with Pheem at the university. And so Pock kicks him in the shin, and then this is after Kie left. So she runs away to go with Kie, and like Pun gets upset. But I just that's friendship, bitch, because
Yes.
Pock really is the ride or die, even if violence is involved. Like, she is there for you through anything. Also, I did not ask for Sai's point of view, and I kind of didn't want it. That's what I was thinking as I was reading this. I'm like, I don't want this. Why is this here? But, like, it does give you more insight, first of all, into Sai, but also into how the outside world views the trio. Because you're
Yeah,
only
that's
getting to
true.
see what they think of each other. And, like, again, what I said earlier, I forgot that Kie is this, like, cold exterior person because, again, she is really dorky. She literally says that about herself. So I completely forgot that she doesn't seem approachable to people. So this was a helpful reminder. Of course, it was a lot later, but it just puts more stuff into perspective as you're getting it. A lot of the ending chapters put so much into perspective.
Yes, agreed. I think the other reason we get the side chapter is that it's important to note the smiling thing, because the smiling thing becomes important at the very end with Pheem and Kie. So I'll bring it up when we get there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then quickly, I brought this up before. It's just like the Pheem and in relation to like Pock and Kie's relationship. First of all, we get the chapter after the whole breakfast thing in Peem's point of view, and Pheem mentions in her monologue that she can't get the image of Pock dancing out of her mind. And I'm like, yeah, of course. So many others. That poor kid is scarred for life, is in therapy now.
Right.
And she also mentions that she's currently on the boat and watching Pock force Kie to like take a photo of her pretending to be Rose from Titanic.
So fucking
and
funny.
I'm just like, that is such a Pock thing. Like, I know I'm learning about Pock in this book, but there's so many things where I'm just like, yeah, that makes sense. Pock would do that. That is Pock. And like, I can see it so vividly and see Looknum in it so vividly that she's going to kill it embodying Pock, because, you know, Pock's prick. Also, I think that this is just Looknum. I don't know Looknum as a person, but like, this is Looknum in my
I have a hypothesis that when in Monmaw's writing space, wherever she writes, she just has a picture of Looknum up on the wall and is like, looks at it for inspiration when she's writing the sidekick, because every sidekick is literally her. Like, I think she writes these roles for Looknum.
But when I was thinking about this, I'm like, could you imagine if Pock and Prick met? Like, what would happen? And there'd be a lot of food involved.
I feel like they're too similar, they wouldn't get along. They'd be in competition with each other over the food.
That's fair. Yeah. There would have to be a lot. Like, it'd have to be a buffet where there's like unlimited bottomless stuff, like no competition with the food. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see, actually. And then Pheem explicitly states that Pock, this is what she says, Pock was the only girl in the world. No matter how close she was to Kiran, I couldn't feel jealous. And then continues, these two seem like they were born to complement each other so perfectly. There was no place for me to step between them. And again, I just love that she doesn't try to, because with someone who has so much insecurity and jealousy that we've seen, to have never been threatened by Pock, the person closest to Kie, and like she fully knows that Kie would choose Pock over her. It shows that there is a healthiness to this relationship, because Pheem didn't, like, she never thought of trying to force them apart, because that's a common plot point in shows too. Like, oh, you can't be friends with them because it's usually, at least in American media or Western medium, but I'm going to just say American because definitely have a monopoly on this. When a girl and a guy are together and the guy's friends with another girl and she's like, you can't be friends with her anymore. And like, it's that whole thing. And like, that's the big C plot that the third act breakup thing.
Heterosexuality is a hell of a drug.
Anyway, yeah, that thing. So I'm just glad that the security is there and like just the dynamic is so much better than having that be an issue.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, like, let's talk about like how we've used friends for jealousy. Let's go back to Affair again. Remember, Juan Viva's like, "Hey, Big Nung, come make Pheem jealous.
Yeah.
Pheem, come make Playing jealous." And like, she used her hot friend to threaten, like, as threatening bait to make her girlfriend jealous, basically. So like, none of that happens here at all, which is really refreshing. And like Pheem said, she's like, she does say, she's like, I've, in her monologue, I've thought about it. I've thought about asking Kiran to choose, but she's like, I know Key's gonna choose Pock, so it's pointless. Like, she has thought about it. It's not that she's like not totally 100% like, I want all of her time, but like if I asked her that, she definitely would never choose me. And I understand how important Pock is to her. So I know that I can't. I have to live with this. And it forces her to be like, friendships are okay, you know, which is the good thing. But her instinct is to be like, get away from Kiran. And then she's like, it's not going to work in my favor, so I just can't. I won't.
I love her description of this duo too. Because she says, the Pocky duo was as inseparable as a spoon and fork, a mud skipper and mangrove, a puppy and a tick, an old buffalo and a Mina, I think. Something along those lines. That's literally what she says. And
so fucking funny.
I just... It's a great description.
Well, let's talk about it. The puppy and the tick. The puppy's Kiran. The tick is Pock.
Yes. The one leeching off.
Yeah, the leech. Fucking Pheem. Oh my god. Okay, so after the Semet, their honeymoon, basically, Pheem goes home to her big, empty, cavernous house, to the Affair house, we're just gonna call it now. She goes to the Affair house, and Pun is waiting for her, and he's been waiting for a while. And apparently, we learn that he's known her family for a while, and he's been like her big brother. That was like a good guy, and now everything's different. And Pheem gets the sense that like he basically is now influencing her father and her father's punishments towards her, because he was like basically like, oh, you should punish your daughter for misbehaving. And her dad's like, okay, I'll do what you say. And so Pheem's like, what the fuck? Like, so anyway, and Pun at this point knows that she's been with Kie because she's like hickeys all over her neck. And he's like, Kie did that, right? And he makes it his mission to try and take down Kie and like claim his ownership over Pheem because he wants the company probably or whatever. So Pun shows up at Key's dorm to talk to her, and Key's like takes him outside in the courtyard basically, and he's like, tell me the truth about those red marks on Pheem's neck, and Key's like, do you want the truth? And he's like, yes. She's like, I did it. Like flat out tells him that was me. And unfortunately, Pun then plays his hand, which is to tell Kie all the things that Pheem should have told Kie about the deal she made with her dad. And Kie doesn't get why Pheem, where she studies is such a big deal. She's like, what does it matter? As long as she like goes to college, who cares where it is? And Pun explains because Pheem is expected to take over her father's giant conglomerate business, which is called ABCD, which like, did Monmaw not know what to call this company? And she's just like, I don't know, ABCD, that's what it's called. I hope it means something, but even if it doesn't, it's even funnier. She's just like, it's like 1, 2, 3 is the name of the company. She's like, I don't know. I'll put in some name later, and like never did. That'd be iconic behavior if that's what actually happened.
The company's name is Nung Song Sam.
Right, no, exactly. Nung Song Sam. Exactly.
But every time I read this, all my brain does, and I don't know if you know the song,
the
but
Jackson 5 song. ABC.
No, but that would be because there's a D. I go A, B, C, D, E, F, U, and your mom, and your... I don't know actually the words, but like that song,
yeah.
That's... Well, I think I knew it before TikTok.
I thought she made it famous on TikTok is what she did.
I don't know. Whatever. I learned it somehow. Definitely you hear it on TikTok, so... But yeah, that's all my brain does. So thank you.
All right, but before Pun can explain any further about this deal, Pock throws dirty water that she used to clean her underwear onto him from the balcony of somebody else's dorm room. And then he leaves after that, which was fucking iconic. So back to like Pock being violent on Key's behalf. This one was hilarious. So now that Key has this context, goes to she has to have it out with Peen basically. And like although Key at this point has made progress with verbalizing her feelings, she still struggles pretty hard with confrontation period because she just naturally doesn't like it. And so she's upset about all the pun stuff and the fact that Peem just never told her I miss you or I love you the way like Key has said those things. But like Key's like, all right, but I do get the sense through her actions that like she's choosing me and that she loves me and just like what the fuck is all of this basically. So Peem comes to see her and Key teases her a little bit about the relationship and Peem's like doesn't realize Key knows all these things. She's like, well, she basically says something like, well, how can I have a husband when Key hasn't proposed to me yet? Basically like being like, I'm serious about you is what she's saying. And then Key's brain in her inner monologue, she's like, my brain like jumps to like the possibility of like them ending up together. But she's like, but ultimately I know my future, her future doesn't involve me. And so then Key brings up that Pun came to see her and like told her all this stuff. And Peem gets really upset and tells Key like she doesn't want to go like to England and like she doesn't want Key to push her away either. And Key's like, well, then just stay, don't go. And Peem agrees and like tells her, like, listen, no matter what happens, like, I'm yours. I'm only yours, Key. Like, just know that. And then 3 days later, Key gets a wedding invitation to Peem and Pun's, announcing their engagement. And then there's a Polaroid picture of the engagement ceremony. And it's just the way it's described, like, Peem doesn't want to be there. So it's like pretty obvious Peem's not into this.
Yeah. Just first of all, it's like a really crappy way to learn all
Well,
about all of this.
yeah, and it's like Pun sent her this as another way to be like, Key, back the fuck off, kind of thing. I wasn't lying, kind of thing. So then Key takes it upon herself to go talk to Peem's dad because now she knows enough to know that like Peem's dad's behind all these things. So basically, Key uses her family connection, which is her grandmother, who's like highly respected by Peem's dad and in a lot of ways, Key is like her grandmother. So in a way, I think that like that's a way to signal that like Peem's dad will eventually like respect Key. And he kind of does in this conversation because he's like, damn, this girl's I underestimated her kind of thing. Like she's fucking smart. So basically, she gets her grandmother to arrange a meeting with Peem's dad and she shows up at his office. And in the office, they do this epic negotiation over Peem's future, which I really hope is in the show because this was fucking awesome the way Key does this. It's sad, but also like awesome. So Peem's dad explains his rationale for the university deal. And he's like, listen, if Peem studies in England and gets like the best education she possibly can, and she'll be prepared to be like the CEO of this company like I am basically. And also like by Peem going, she's going to have to learn to like live on her own a bit. It's going to toughen her up. It'll give her a new perspective. Because I assume in this type of like company, I assume like international trade is involved. So like it really would equip Peem the best way versus just staying in Thailand and having one perspective and that kind of stuff. So I think he's like worried that she wouldn't be super equipped to do this if she only stayed here. And so basically he's like, so if she wants to stay, then I have to make sure that she's going to succeed. So then she has to have the best business partner ever who's going to help her. And for some reason, she needs to be married to that person. And that's where Pun enters the scene.
Specifically a husband.
Right. Well, also, like, I think he knows Pun, and he's like, well, he's smart at business. Him. I guess he vetted him. But yeah, bold of you to only assume it had to be a man.
Yeah. Also, after this, like Key does stand up to him and like tells him the reality of this whole situation, which I'm sure like no one has ever attempted to
Right.
not agree with him. And she says, if you set aside the duties of the company president and respond as a father, and then he's silent. And
Mm-hmm.
Kie asks, well, tells, because there's no asking. You have to tell him things. Please explain to me why you make Pheem do things against her will. And this is still from the actual book. Pheem's dad clenches his jaw tight. The girl in front of him was incredibly bold. Not only did she never look away when speaking to him, unlike all his subordinates, but Kiran's questions were so direct. Because they weren't questions, they're statements. It was hard to believe someone dared to ask him all these. And, okay, so going back, I know there's probably more to it, but Pheem's dad's argument was that Pheem wouldn't be tough enough to run the company without having someone by her side. So with this conversation, Kie is showing that she is a person who doesn't let people step on her. So how did this not prove right away that she could be the one to help Pheem run the company?
I think that seed is getting planted here, for sure. But that's why I think, like, the rest of this conversation, I think the dad is thinking that stuff, and then he's like, how can I test Kie to make sure that this is, because they're still teenagers at this point. He's like, how can I test Kie to make sure that she is worthy of my daughter, kind of thing. So I think that's where the rest of this deal comes in. That's why I think, like, in volume 2, which we haven't read yet, I think her dad's going to come around to Kiran and be like, yeah, it's you. You should be her partner, kind of thing. I think he's proving that right. Is setting the scene for that here.
Insert the wicked sound. It's me. Anyway, I spend too much time on TikTok.
Well, also, like,
let's just keep going.
insert it's me. Hi, I'm the problem. Hi. It's me. It's Kie walking in. He's like, it's you, isn't it? Because Kie's dad at this point, or God, I keep saying that. Pheem's dad has figured out that Pheem loves Kie, and as long as Kie is in the picture, Pheem will never agree to willingly leave Thailand. He's already put that together. I think he's like, you have this power over my daughter, and she's defying me out of nowhere. I think he's a little mad at Kie because, like, he thinks that Kie is causing his daughter to rebel. But I think by the end of this conversation, he gets the sense that, like, he's actually there's more to her than he thought. And he's like, huh. But anyway, so Kie sees this as just another way Pheem's father is trying to control her life with, like, where she goes to school. And, like, again, like, Pheem has no choice. She's going to run the company. Like, Pheem has no choices in her life, basically. So, like, Pheem's like, please let me, like, at least go to school where I want to go to school. So basically, she's like, okay, how about we make a deal since you're so fond of what is he, the devil? He's like, let's make a deal. You know what I mean? Make a deal with the devil. So Kie agrees to make Pheem hate her because, like he said, he's like, as long as you're in the picture, she's not going to leave. So she's like, she has to hate you. That's the only reason this is going to work. For some reason, we have to hate each other for this to work. And she's like, okay, I'll agree to, like, stay away from Pheem, make her hate me so she won't come after me, and I won't talk to her at all or contact her until she finishes university, basically. And so that way she'll go abroad like you want. And she's like, in exchange for that, though, this going abroad to England thing and her completing her studies there is the last thing you're going to make her do. After that, Pheem can make whatever choice in her life after that. This is it. Your deals with your daughter end here. And the dad is really surprised and a little impressed with the way Kie asks this deal. And he's like, Kie, I don't understand why you didn't just ask me to just call off the wedding to Pun, because obviously you want to be with her. Like, wouldn't that get you what you want directly by just calling off the engagement? And Kie says, if I asked for that, then I would be no better than you, because that would be me controlling Pheem's life. So basically, like, Kie makes this deal so that Pheem can have her choices in her life and her dad can leave her the fuck alone after this. So she's like, who Pheem chooses to be with at the end, she's like, I want it to be Pheem's choice. Because she's like, if Pheem chooses to come back to her, basically, after the €6 deal, then Kie wants Pheem to do it because that's what Pheem wants, not because she manipulated a situation so that she got what she wanted. It's Pheem has to want it. And later, Pock is like, I don't understand why you made this deal either, Kie. Like, why don't you just, like, go to England and then be with Pheem? And, like, her dad would never know, and you get what you want now. And basically, Kie admits that she's going to stick with the deal. And the reason is she's like, well, that's short-term thinking. Pock. That way I can be satisfied now. But she's like, I'm playing the long game when it comes to Pheem because like that's the love of her life. And she's like, that's what I want. So I'm going to play the long game because Kie is really fucking smart. And I love that.
She's very strategic.
Yes.
Like using that scholarly brain that comes naturally to her to really go for the long term and not instant gratification.
And I think the dad picks up on that, honestly, because like in a business person, you want someone who's strategic. And I think he's seeing these traits in Kie now. And he's like, huh. But then he's like, if you can stick to this, then you'll be somebody worthy of my company. I think he's testing her as much as he's testing Pheem in this.
That's a good point. I didn't think of it from that point of view. But with the way that she asked and like made this deal, it made me respect this decision 1,000 times more because yeah, it isn't her trying to control the situation. Because like a lot of times these deals may behind the scenes, it's like them choosing for their partners.
Right.
But this is her not choosing for Pheem, but making it so Pheem has a life. Because no matter what, she wouldn't have a life if she's being controlled.
Yes.
But now she has that opportunity. And Kie is sacrificing her own happiness because she has to sit with the fact that Pheem's going to hate her, being upset, being apart, and not even knowing if it's going to work out for her in the end. Like she could be screwing herself over entirely, but it doesn't matter as long as Pheem has a life that she can control. And that is true love.
Yeah, exactly. And the cherry on top at the end of this whole thing is when Kie's like, I want 2 signed copies of this contract we're making right now. So I'm pretty sure this whole thing is going to come up in volume 2. And eventually Kie's going to be like, look, nope, this was the deal I made with your dad. Here, it's signed and everything.
It was also a good move because you know that bitch is going to pretend like this conversation didn't happen in a few years.
Exactly. That's why she's like,
you can't trust anyone, especially in business, which is also a great example of, if this whole thing was a test for her, which, he totally would do.
Yep.
She is nailing it. And later we find out that Kie does get a job at the company, but not because she wants to, because it's the way that she can be as close as possible to Pheem when Pheem gets back. Because right now Pheem hates her. So like she doesn't know if she's going to agree to see her or not. But like this way she's always in her orbit and like allows that opportunity for them to get back to this place. And again, this is another thing like of her showing that she does have a strategic mind, because like she did figure out a way like exactly to ask Pheem's dad where he couldn't twist it.
Yep.
Like there's no twisting, like do not make any choices for your daughter.
Yep.
This is the last choice you make. And I'm in awe of this scene. I love this scene. This is another scene that really sticks with you because this is the very last chapter. I thought it was a special chapter and I was like, the audacity, Monmaw. And then I rechecked. I'm like, all right, fine. It's chapter 33. I understand, whatever. But you get all of the like the breakup and her leaving beforehand. And you're like, what the hell is happening? Like, why is she seem to be going after Sai? It's just, it made no sense. And then you get here and you're like, oh, well, shit. That makes that. All right. Okay, I get it.
We did this chronologically, not the way it was in the novel. But yeah, because you get Kie's point of view. So it makes it more heartbreaking when you go back. Which we'll get into the breakup in a minute.
It's a really good. I'm excited to see it too.
It's gonna be big and great. So, and then I think in volume 2, like if she's at the company, then that the dad's gonna observe shit. I think this is all him testing Kie. A lot of this is him testing Kie.
Yeah, which also makes sense because, I mean, in a way, I guess he's kind of a villain with like controlling her, because like you should let them have their own life. I understand like it's more a culture for parents to be involved in the decisions, but this is already leading to his redemption arc. If that's the case of like him like doing all this testing, which again is still all right, fine. And still kind of you controlling the situation, but
definitely. But also like
as long as they're happy in the end.
If you think about it, it's like he picked Pun because he knew him and like knew his character and like knew things about him, and like he doesn't know Kie. He knows her grandmother and has a lot of respect for her grandmother. And so he's like, huh, I wonder if she's like her grandmother. And so maybe he's trying to get to know her too, to be like, are you just some hooligan, or like, are you worthy of my daughter, kind of thing. So Pheem seems like his prized daughter, because like, why is she getting the company and not her older sister? That's kind of weird. Why isn't the older sister getting it? We don't know that.
And there's two other siblings. No, I know that one's a cousin, right?
Cousin.
Who's Puck again?
Puck is the nephew. He's like a child.
Nephew. Thank you. Okay.
So yeah, like, that's right. I guess maybe he'll.
But there is a sibling.
Right. There's an older sibling. Like, why isn't the older sibling getting the company? So I don't know from volume 1, maybe it's in volume 2, but like, we don't know yet. But like, it seems like Pheem is the one he thinks is more capable of this. So he must think highly of Pheem. He's just not showing it because also like he's single parenting and doesn't know what he's doing, and there's all that, that C-plot. But anyway, let's get into the breakup. So basically, this ends with Kie's birthday again. And so we go back to get wasted for the dog to eat your puke, because that's just where we go. And Kie is heartbroken over the Pheem situation. So basically, she knows about Pun, and she's already met with her the dad. And so she's made the deal with the dad at this point. But when you're reading it in the novel, like Caitlin said, you get this first, then the deal with the dad, but it's out of order. So like, she knows she has to give up Pheem. So she's more upset on her own fucking birthday, okay, which she doesn't even like. And then Pheem made her like birthdays again, and now she has to give up the thing she likes on her birthday, which is even worse. Way to stab us all in the heart. Monmaw loves stabbing you in the heart. As the cliffhanger. Remember the loyal pin? Volume 1 ends with, wait for me, pin. And like, this is a worse version of that. Anyway, so Kie is super heartbroken. And so Sai is there, naturally. So Sai is like the entertainment, and she announces, she's like, I'm gonna sing this song for somebody. I don't even know what she says, but she's basically dedicating a song to Kie. And she starts singing the song, and in Kie's brain, she's like, this is Pheem song. Like, it's a song she associates with Pheem, and it was a song that was playing like right before she found out about the engagement, and like a private moment they were having where she associates the song with Pheem. So it makes the whole situation worse, because now she's like in her field, she has to give up Pheem. Pheem's song is playing, and then she's just like sad as fuck. And then Pheem texts her and she's like, I'm outside, come see me. So basically, she comes outside and like to see Pheem, and Pheem saw her talking to Sai earlier, and Sai was smiling at Kie, his defense mechanism, and when she's uncomfortable, and Pheem read that as flirting, and so she's like, "Why are you flirting with Sai? Did you move on?" Like, I think Kie was ghosting her at this point. And Kie says nothing for a while, and Pheem keeps pushing and pushing and pushing, and Kie says, "Yes, yeah, I was." So, because that's the only thing that's gonna make Pheem hate her, is like being like, "You're right. I left you after I got what I wanted." Because that's Pheem's biggest fear, right? And she told Kie that, so Kie uses it against her. And this breaks Pheem, because she's like, I thought you were different. I thought you were the one person that loved me no matter what. And here, I was right about you. You're just like everybody else. So she like breaks down. And basically Pheem was holding a gift for Kie in this little velvet box. She throws it at Kie, and then is like inconsolable. And her older sister is there, and I guess she drove her, and she comes out to grab Pheem, and like Kie is like, fuck, I went too far. And she tries to like, almost doesn't go through with this. She tries to like console Pheem and touch her, and Pheem will not let her touch her. And then the sister comes in and she's like, Kie, just don't even. And like takes Pheem away, and they leave. And then Kie opens the gift, and inside the box is a matching gear necklace. And again, the gear necklace was something Kie got as it's like hard work, dedication to something you love kind of thing. So like Pheem was gifting that back to her, in like, so they would have matching necklaces as like a symbol of like their enduring love kind of thing. And like, here's how it ends, right? So it ends with Kie going through her plan and being heartbroken, and then Pheem being devastated. So then we time jump in the next chapter, and it's Pheem Pheem decides to leave. So remember, to your point, like, Kie wanted Pheem to make her own decisions. So going to England, Pheem decides to do. And she's like, well, what's the point of being here? I don't want to run into Kie and Sai. I can't handle that. I'm just going to go. And so it's her last day in Thailand. And one of the last things she does is she's taking down the Kie shrine. She's taking down all those photos and putting them in a box that she locks. So it's symbolic of her, like, leaving her feelings for Kie behind, basically. And one of the things she puts in the box is a letter that she wrote that she was going to give to Kie on her birthday. And I'm sure this will come up again the same way the contract's going to come up in volume 2. But in the letter, Pheem bears the entire truth to Kie. So I guess that Pheem was having a hard time saying it, so like writing it down was easier for her to do, and she was going to give it to Kie to be like, here's how I feel. And in the letter, she tells Kie she loves her, and she's like, I'm sorry I'm doing it in a letter, but like, and I'm sorry I'm doing this so late, but here it is. And she also explains everything about her father and how miserable her life was at home. And she explains to Kie the reason she did all the things that she did, even though they were really extreme and cowardly. She even calls herself a coward for doing it. But she was fighting really hard to stay in Thailand no matter what, because Kie was her only source of happiness in her life. And she's like, I didn't want to give that up no matter what. And it's all really sad and like bittersweet and stuff. But my favorite part of this letter is that she brings Piggy into it. And at the very end, she writes, Papa and Mama, please make up, in parentheses, it's Piggy's voice. Like, as a way to get Kie. That was so funny.
I love that the ending is it's Piggy's voice.
It's Piggy's voice. Because in the beginning of the letter, she's like, Piggy's about to be like a troubled child because her parents are fighting. And she's like, if you care at all, Kiran, which I think you do, you'll hear me out for Piggy. So she's using it as a kid, as a bartering piece. Like, they treat the doll like their child. It's adorable and so fucking funny. And that's basically how it ends.
Such a happy note, right?
I mean, there's the happy note is that, you know, I think we're going to time jump ahead the 6 years. Kie's going to be at the company, and then we're going to pick up from there and resolve all of this, basically.
I was about to say the happy note is, but that's not it. That, you little shit.
Little shit.
The happy note is that there's a volume 2.
Fuck yeah. And we're going to get to that next. We haven't read it yet, so we don't know what's in it yet. But we will.
No. But a couple more things about volume 1. So I believe that Kie's writing letters to Pheem while they're separated. And not sending them.
Very Indian
just
of
writing
her.
them.
Monmaw loves her long distance love letters.
Yeah. Oh, no,
romantic.
we're going to get into that in a second. But one of the letters, Kie writes, I really admired Pock's courage to leave a stable job for a job with P. Beer, meaning starting from a job as a production crew, doing everything from setting up the lights, queuing cast, sourcing costumes, and doing makeup. I already feel sorry for the cast, which that's hilarious. But also, there is a comment that she makes when they're in high school, I believe, and like Pock is questioning her, and Kie makes a comment that she's doing a great job she's doing well at her job as an entertainment business journalist or something like that.
Yeah.
And I put that and then this. I'm like, my only thought right now is Pock going to jump companies and become a character in Girl Rules? Because I would really love that crossover.
Yes, I would love that.
That's the only thing I can think of.
Mm-hmm. It could just be a short scene, a cameo. I'm here for that. Please make it happen.
I could just see it. I just love it. Fan fiction, at least. Someone write it. Thank you.
Maybe we'll write it.
You
Maybe
can
it'll
wait
be
till the show comes out.
Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, I know, right? That's exactly. I was like, well, that sounds like a prop for us. Also, a note about point of views. I did not know that this switched point of views, and I was like, I'm confused right now. Until I texted the aura. But Monmaw doesn't explicitly tell you each point of view, like the chapter of whose point of view it is in. So you're left with trying to figure it out with context clues in the first few chapters. So chapter 29, besides the person saying second wife, I figured it out because the inner monologue seemed so exaggerated and flourished the same way that Pock's actions are just in general. So I'm like, this has to be Pock. And that's literally what I wrote in there. I'm like, I have to mention this. So, like, the way they speak, Pock speaks in here is, but the second wife did it out of her love for Kie. She didn't want to be apart from her. From minor heartaches to major upheavals, she had never brought her troubles to Kie, choosing instead to swallow her pain and fix her issues on her own, like how an 18-year-old girl would. However, for the husband, such behavior was a trampling on Kie's highest dignity, as if the second wife had dragged Peepun into their home and pressed his foot, fresh from stepping in dog poop, against her face. I'm like, this is such.
It's so Pock.
I'm like, it has to be.
It's so Pock.
So I just love how that's how I figured that out. Not the second wife thing, just that it was exaggerated. Also, let's just for a second, the loyal pin versus somewhere somehow, because these two, they're the same story, really,
They're pretty similar.
just in different time periods, and I love the contrast between them because they really are both period pieces in their own right. Like in 50 years, someone will read this book and like there's pop culture references, they'll know what was popular around this time. It's very interesting, and like the similarities, one being sent away to another to school, the letters, because I love like the letters aren't emphasized in this one as it is in the loyal pin, but they are there, especially when they're apart too.
Yep.
And then I mean Pock is the easiest one. There's so many similarities in this.
Yeah, Monmaw is very good at writing childhood friends to lovers with a separation period, but it's like you're not mad at it. You're just like, this is part of the romance, like the whole thing. Like there's going to be longing, but like here, when there's the separation, they are not on the same page, so it's different than the loyal pin. With the loyal pin, it ends with wait for me pin. So like you're kind of like hopeful that like they're on the same page. They just got to get through this last piece and everything's going to be fine. I mean, there's the whole time period and they're not allowed to be together. Versus here, like that's not really the issue. It's just like a modern version where like being gay is not the problem. The problem is like the family stuff and like all that kind of stuff.
I mean, like it's not like the same story. It's different.
The beats are
like,
similar.
This
though.
One's a lot more comedic too.
Exactly.
Like there was comedic elements in the loyal pin, but this one's very much emphasizing comedy, and it's just enough that you know it's the same writer.
Yeah, Monmaw is a great writer. I love it. She's so
Yes.
good at writing romances that are very in depth. There's character growth. Like she takes her time with like making the relationship grow in this beautiful way. Like Kie and Pheem are not the same when they started the story. Like, and you can see in their relationship's not the same. Their communication got better. Like it's not perfect because they're still kids, but it gets better. And I'm very excited to see.
And then you also
read volume 2.
Get glimpses into like the side character. Like
yes, agreed.
We got the side point of view. It's kind of like when we got Auntie Pad's backstory. Like
yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry. That's still one of my favorite parts of the loyal pin.
It's so good. Yeah, that was beautiful.
Is that revelation? Oh, that's so good. But yeah, Monmaw is really good at putting like those little things in there that just make a huge impact.
Yeah, I love her stories. They're so good, and I'm really glad they get adapted in their entirety. At least 12 episodes. I mean, the loyal pin got more, but like at least like they get like what is typical of like a full season or a full, length of time to like tell the story versus like fucking the reverse for you stories always get shafted. And
I don't understand
it. You can't
out
tell
of
sci-fi
every single show. That's the one episodes.
I know, it's ridiculous. Those stories are so like.
It was like 4 episodes.
Basically, it's 4-hour-long episodes for the reverse for you. It was ridiculous for like a sci-fi book that's 600 pages. It's ridiculous, but yeah, Mama was good. Was good at negotiating. I don't know. Go for you, girl. You know your worth. Anyway,
I really want to know more about the business behind that, but
Mama, if you're out there. All right, let's wrap this up with Taylor Swift songs. So I have a couple. So first, I think that "You Belong with Me" is about Kie's first wife and second wife talking about Kiran. And it's not the whole song. It's just like certain elements of it. Like it's comparing Pheem and Pock. She wears high heels. I wear sneakers. She's cheer captain, and I'm on the bleachers. Because when they were in high school, Pheem was a cheerleader also, and then Pock was like on the basketball team, but she didn't play. She was on the bench. So I just heard this and I was like, we're just comparing first wife and second wife in this song.
Put a pin in that one. That would be a good TikTok edit later once the show airs.
When we get the show. And then the other one I think that perfectly encapsulates Pheem and Kie in volume 1 is Stay, Stay, Stay from the Red album, which is basically about these two, it's a couple fighting, and one of them is hot-headed, and then the other one is like, but I want to be with you, so let's do this. So this gives you Pheem and Kie dynamics. So I'm just going to read an excerpt of the song. Where you came in, this is when they're fighting, and then one person, this is Kie, who comes back in to like have it out with Pheem, basically. So you came in wearing a football helmet and said, okay, let's talk. And then I said, stay, stay, stay. I've been loving you for quite some time, but you think it's funny when I'm mad. But I think it's best if we both stay. So like it's Kie comes in, she's like in armor, and she's like, all right, Pheem, let's fight, because she has anger management issues. So I think this is them. And like we mentioned earlier, like Kie will do things to like piss off Pheem because she also thinks it's fun. It's a way to like rile her up. And Pheem one point calls her out and she's like, you rile me up on purpose, don't you, Kie? So like this song I think is just their dynamic when they're younger.
Yeah. I mean, I was reading the excerpt and I was like, well, damn, that is perfect. You're really good at this Taylor Swift songs.
Thank you.
The only thing I came up with, because when they're adults really sticks in my mind, especially with once I got to the negotiation scene, that was really just like, that one really sticks with me. So I'm going with Say Don't Go.
Yeah,
Stay,
I love
Don't
that
Go?
song. Say Don't Go, yeah.
Yeah.
My Pluto song.
Yeah. I was like, well, I know it's kind of Pluto's now,
it
but
can be
like
whatever you want it to be. I mean, that's
but
Pheem.
yeah, that's
like
just
if Kie just said
them
don't go,
being
she
separate.
would've.
That's where we end up. We end up with Stay, Don't Go.
Yeah, basically.
Don't go.
Oh, that's a good one. All right, so now we've made it this far. Big Gay Energy Award.
Shit, I always forget.
This is hard.
I always forget this part.
It has to be.
This is every episode, but
so I love Pheem when they were on their first date with the popcorn, because that was overt flirting, and Kie was just like, I can't even pay attention to this goddamn movie because she keeps trying to flirt with me, which I thought was really funny. I like that as a Big Gay Energy Award moment. And then Kie, during their first time, the lead up to the first time, where she's trying to flirt with Pheem, and she does this flirting with like beer, where she's like trying to like get her to kiss her, and she's like, taste the beer, and like she like steps up her flirting game finally, versus just being like quiet and letting things happen. So like Kie got some confidence, and then it never goes away after it works, so it's pretty funny. I give her that.
I'm trying to go between a couple things right now.
Okay.
So the first one is just Pheem writing reserved on the back of
my god, yes.
Kie's shirt.
Like took
like,
up
that
the
just seems
whole
like,
back of the shirt, not just like
the possessive lesbian
so
type.
Possessive.
Not that I'm calling Pheem a lesbian. We don't know the labels.
Right, no. But that is lesbian behavior,
but
though. Just a
that, or Pheem saying, if you ask for it back, I'll kill you.
That was so fucking funny with the gear necklace. Yeah, big energy.
But my favorite part, if we're gonna go with like, I don't know if it's big gay energy, but like just favorite part in general, is definitely Pock dancing, like doing that
for
thing.
sex,
like,
though. For queer sex, though. She did it for lesbian sex, so like,
that's
that counts.
She's the biggest advocate for them.
Yes, she's their biggest supporter, and I love her for that forever. Long live Pock. All
right, this episode has been a huge journey. Yes. I don't know why I don't expect this at this point. Like, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a quick episode. No, because we have a lot to say, because how could we not?
Thank you.
But if you made it this far, we want to know. And how are we going to know if you made it this far? Well, I'm going to give you a word that you can use in a comment. YouTube and Spotify. I believe those are the two places currently where you can comment, or you can leave a review on wherever possible for podcast platforms using the word negotiation, because there was a lot of negotiating in this book.
There was. And what an epic negotiation at the end. That's a good one. So give us your best shot in the comments, please. Well, we'll be back next time to read volume 2. And so get a read-in. So we'll be back in a few weeks so we can all get into that beautiful book and then eventually get our series. So until next time, hydrate for lesbian Jesus.
And gay it up all over the place.
Bye.
Bye.
And with that, we've been Big Gay Energy. If you like this episode, check out all our other episodes right here on YouTube.
Please like, leave a comment below, and subscribe for more amazing super gay content.